нашего героя, пацана. По дефолту его зовут Рэнди.
Looks like Randy's name. Let me refresh this one last time.
Давайте перепроверим. И как же его зовут?
Gamin.
Gammon doesn't mean anything to me, but for whoever it does mean something to, here you go. So,
I think it might just be Gamin.
We gaming, bros.
Two other characters that'll need to be named. We'll have like 15 minutes or so before that happens, and when it does, they'll be kind of rapid fire one than the next. So if you want to get your name in for one of those, get going quickly. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Поехали. Ну да, время вовремя. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. У нас катсцена. Должно быть вовремя, потому что, скорее всего, со стримом ничего не происходило. Должно быть столько же, сколько и было до этого. Видите, впереди. Давайте чуть ползанем буквально. Ползанул буквально полсек. Должно быть достаточно. Эта игра достаточно длинная. Да, это, наверное, то, как можно о ней выразиться. В ней, ну, точно 8, может быть, даже 12 часов геймплея. По большей части я, наверное, буду стараться переводить по той простой причине, что они вдвоем супер круто ведут стримы и все время объясняют, что происходит. Большая часть игр про секреты начинается именно с того, что мы падаем с водопада и находим тот самый меч.
This game places a lot of emphasis on each individual type of weapon that you get. Each of your 3 characters will eventually have 3 here. Each of them will individually track the total weapon.
Каждый из героев может носить определенное оружие. В итоге всего будет, ну, по сути, должно быть около 9 орудий. Каждый может носить по 3 из них. Насколько я помню, они не могут повторяться. Что на самом деле интересно, поскольку я забыл именно вот эту часть. Мы это сломаем, естественно, спидранеры. Вот. И у каждого имеется свой определенный счетчик уровней на оружие. Получаем баф от этого уровня и усиляются заряды. Сейчас мы будем стараться максимально оптимально двигаться и разваливать кроликов. Наша задача получить достаточное количество опыта в размере 1. Неудачно ударил. В принципе, все равно закончил обоих одновременно. Нормально. Вот вы можете заметить, что у нас есть проценты внизу. Они обозначают нашу подготовленность к удару или к тому, чтобы бежать. Эти кролики самый простой противник в этой игре. Они не могут уклоняться. Да, какое-то количество экспы небольшое. И на них, в принципе, нормально качаться вначале.
We'll have some more shenanigans with level differences among characters later, but first we arrive back in town and we have the mana sword.
Прибываем в город, и нас сразу же обвиняют в том, что мы как это правильно сказать, навлекаем на себя беду и на эту деревню. Взяв этот меч, монстры нападут. В принципе, как и произошло. Появляется босс. Можете посмотреть на эту секси-пад, так сказать, в правом нижнем углу. И наша задача просто бить босса, находиться в достаточно хорошем расстоянии от него. И будем надеяться, что босс не будет защищаться. Да, он не защищался, отлично. Хорошо. Да, нас булят. Интересно. В битвах с боссом у нас намного больше хитбокс нашего оружия. Это интересно.
If I wind up getting a stab attack animation, which can happen if I'm standing too close to an enemy, then that attack animation is pretty slow, and it'll make it very hard for my next attack to get in before the Mantis Ant's counterattack comes in. Also, if I'm just a little bit slow, that'll also be a problem. Whenever something has precise timing in this game, most of the time it's not quite as tight as some of the other like precision platformer type games because this game does run on a 5-frame.
Ситуация с этой игрой такая, что она проигрывается на правиле 5 кадров. И каждый определенный кадр она проверяет какие-то определенные точки. Какие-то точки просто не проверяются. Бывает такое, что мы можем бежать в одну сторону, но игра не проверила, в какую сторону мы смотрим, и может посчитать не в ту, что мы смотрим не в ту сторону, но набежать мы будем в ту сторону. В общем, разные ситуации происходят. И, честно, я сильно так и не разобрался, что дает это понятие того, что игра двигается в 5 кадрах. Вот. Цветок мы тоже должны были уничтожить, но шаги считать не нужно, поскольку здесь нет противников, которые появляются и заставляют нас драться с ними в обязательном. Типа они появляются, мы можем с ними драться, но в основном можно всегда убежать. Бегать по лестницам мы не можем в этой игре. Все, что нас выводит из дэша или быстрого бега, как я уже говорил, мы тогда в таком случае увидим проценты внизу, говорящие нам о нашей готовности что-то делать. The math for that gets a little complicated, but it comes down to your hit rate getting an extra halving, and that most of the time puts you in the low damage roll category, which your low damage roll. Когда вы бьете, когда вы не готовы, вы автоматически бьете в маленьком, в нижнем рейнже атаки, и ваш урон в 2 раза меньше вашего основного, что очень приятно. Тут мы знакомимся с семенами маны. Это семена дерева маны. Каждый босс, в принципе, или почти каждый, дает нам не знаю, как правильно, усиление для наших орудий. Каждый раз для разного оружия обычно. В выделенном определенном количестве. Всего у нас 8. Да, это будет 3 часа. Всего у нас будет, ну, скорее меньше, 2:40. Я ставлю то, что это будет 2:35, 2:40. Вот, 8 семян, 8 храмов, которые нам нужно посетить, но мы не будем этого делать, спойлер, так сказать.
Where I was when I entered the room in which I made the save. So since that happens to be at the bottom of all those stairs, and since Luca had a couple more things she wanted to say that aren't actually plot mandatory for me to listen to.
Было бы неплохо прослушать нам Луку, которая должна была с нами поговорить, но мы можем выйти и зайти обратно. Нас отравило, и мы можем умереть. Прикол этой игры в том, что у противника быстрее намного эта энергия восстанавливается, и они как бы... Если мы их бьем, то они могут попасть в станлок, технически говоря, видите? То есть там кролик останавливается или там цветок, он как бы застревает. Но если нас бьют противники, для них существует такое же правило, и они для нас даже более опасны, потому что их больше, они могут комбинить по нам урон, во-первых. Во-вторых, у них могут атаки восстанавливаться быстрее. Как вы могли видеть, мы почти отъехали моментально. Этот цветок немного выше нашего уровня. Но все еще. Плюс у нас нет никакого оборудования на данный момент. Но мы сейчас это исправим. Встречаемся с первым глючом. Кошка-продавец Неко. Здесь мы купим пару вещей, так сказать, а затем продадим. Сальтуха в другую локацию. Да, самое лучшее перемещение — это при помощи пушки. Мы купили две вещи, разные, обязательно. Теперь продали их. А теперь сделали, что купили их, и сделаем вид, что продаем. И мы видим на экране какие-то вещи, которые мы продаем. Но на самом деле это все обман зрения. Мы продаем наш инвентарь, в котором ничего нет. То есть мы сейчас меняем ничего на деньги. Нам нужно около 450, 400, 400, ну ладно, хорошо, 400. Но вообще обычно 450 он оставляет тысяч золота. Я не знаю, что такое АХС. Если ты можешь. Приобретаем нужные нам вещи. Так, это, по-моему, воскрешение. Ремеди, которая... ВХС. Ну да. Ремеди, которые типа должны статусы снимать. Мана-орехи. Орехи тут только ману тут только орехами восстанавливают. Пару бочек, которые дают нам неуязвимость. И ХП, по-моему, мы не покупаем. Было бы неплохо сохраниться. Не хотелось бы делать это все заново. Если мы сохранимся тут. Просто потому, что мы сейчас на марафоне, не хотелось бы делать много чего заново, у нас не так много времени, и у нас мало хп. Мы не похилимся, пока будем бежать через этот данж. Но если мы получим уровень, то наши хп восстановятся. Проблема в том, что у нас сейчас все ваншотит. Летучие мыши очень опасны. Это наше первое подземелье, и сюжетно, и вообще нормально, как бы. Мы нормально, то есть, проходим. Все по канону. Вот. Сейчас мы их уничтожаем, получаем левелап, все отлично, четко. Вот. И летучие мыши умеют кастовать магию. Тут много кто умеет кастовать магию. И такую же, как и мы кастуем. Вот, и что вот и получилось. Соответственно, кастанули летающий шарик, и пока мы летаем, у нас, по-моему, типа пониженный дефенс, и они супер быстро нас убивают. Благо, летучая мышь тупила и не стала нас убивать.
Let's go ahead and pick up the magic rope over here. The chest there has an item that will allow me to return back to the entrance of the area. That kid goblin had already
При помощи манипуляции движения в инвентаре, то есть ты зашел, купил, потом продал, потом сделал вид, что покупаешь, потом делаешь вид, что продаешь. Получается так, что продаешь инвентарь. Так что да, это просто так работает. Это не так просто сделать, и не так просто до этого догадаться.
At this point, I'm pretty close to having as much weapon experience on the spear as I want to get.
Мы получили достаточное количество опыта на копье. Как мы, в принципе, обсуждали, для каждого оружия имеется свой определенный опыт, который повышает нам уровни для этого оружия. И у каждого персонажа свой уровень оружия. Попадаем в деревню дворфов. Или подземелье дворфов. Не знаю. Наш первый кузнец, который нам перекует наш меч.
Your maximum level that you can get your weapon experience to for each weapon is capped by the current amount of forging you've given the weapon.
Анимация смерти здесь прикольная.
Which also makes it the strongest weapon I have at this time. So I will swap back to it after I've done the rest of my equipment shenanigans.
Наверное, насчет оружия я ошибся. Все-таки тут не уникальное оружие. Потому что я знаю, что копье можно носить любому без гличей. Соответственно, любое оружие, их всего 9, как он сказал, может носить любой персонаж. Добираемся до магазина с одежкой и приобретаем одежку. И мы покупаем по 4 штуки каждой. И причина в том, что мы будем продавать вещи, которые мы носим. Таким образом будем манипулировать тем, что происходит в нашем меню.
So, since the trash can icon's position can be set by me simply standing in a particular spot on the screen whenever I do it, I can make it look for something that it thinks in memory is something the boy has equipped. As it turns out, if you
Такое чувство, что у него вентилятор работает на заднем плане. Он не стримит обычно с камерой. Поэтому, да. Я думаю, это типа быстрый сетап камеры, какой он получил. Насчет глича с одежкой тоже все очень сложно. Нам нужно встать в какой-то определенном месте на экране, чтобы мусорка, которая появляется у нас в меню, она где-то была как раз-таки на экране. В итоге мы глючим наш инвентарь таким образом, что получаем количество используемых вещей в количестве 0. Если используемая вещь находится в количестве 0, то при использовании ее мы получаем максимальное ее количество. I'm going to ask Yawgmoth to take over commentary here, but our host, if you can start getting ready to lock in the final. Тут у нас босс, технически говоря, первый нормальный босс, цветок, и мы будем пытаться бить его в первый кадр того момента, как он появился на экране, ну, когда появился его хитбокс. Если мы будем делать все правильно, бить каждый раз в первый кадр, то мы сможем бить его по 2 раза. Если мы хотя бы раз промажем, то он не будет давать нам бить 2 раза. Всегда будет уходить в первый же раз. Пока все идеально. И это лучше, чем у него обычно получается на его практисах. А также я, к сожалению, не знаю, какие роллы нам нужны по урону. Сейчас мы услышим. Я думаю. О, попал. Отлично, хорошо. Сейчас, я думаю, нам скажут. Босс, кокос.
Thanks. So yeah, there's a lot of little things that are very strange about this game if you take a careful look at things. There's supposed to be 2 Bramblers, one on the left, one on the right, and the one on the right is the one that just doesn't show up on screen as long as you're doing anything as the game begins the fight. So yeah, kind of strange there. Anyway, we do need to name the sprite now, so...
Окей, они ничего не рассказали про рандом. Я не могу сказать. На мой взгляд, показалось, как будто на 1 цикл больше получилось. Но в целом, вроде все очень гладко. У него, конечно, было пол хп, но в целом достаточно гладко. Ника. Будут звать нашего...
Oh, was it an S? Well, it's Nico now. I can't actually go back, unfortunately.
Oh, no,
if it was
is Nico's. Wow, holy moly. Sorry, there was another donation on a different name that was Nico, and now it Nico's with an S. Sorry, that's my bad. Right, Nico it is. It's actually correct.
Окей, все в порядке. Назвали правильно персонажа. Это дух. Ну, по крайней мере, переводится спрайт, технический дух, или как их там зовут. Сейчас мы направляем мусорку таким образом, чтобы мы могли надеть меч сразу на 2 персонажей. По-моему, так. Да, у спрайта, я не помню, это не дух, а как-то есть хороший перевод для этого монстра, я не помню, я делал его.
So, if I select the boy, then there is, of course, nothing stopping him from picking up the sword also. So now we've got 2 swords, which is nice for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's the only
Фея мне просто меньше нравится, чем дух или спрайт. Но фея будет супер грамматически правильно. Это мальчик. И он жулик. Жулик в прямом смысле. Маленький жулик. Наша задача сейчас добивать духом. Фей, ладно, фей. Добивать фей. Поскольку мы сейчас на пацане немного выше уровнем, чем большинство противников, а фея ниже уровнем нам досталась, нам нужно фею залапить. И тут работает так, что экспа считается для добивающего по его уровню. То есть, если добивающий тот, у кого больше опыта. Пока драка идет не очень хорошо, но в принципе нормально. Если они не начнут хилить друг друга, как эти самые люди, которые играют на лучниках, ну нет, ну вот это вот началось. Если их не застаночить, ой, какой крит жесткий был по 72, это жестко. Хорошо очень было. Вот. И если ты как бы на лоу-левельном чарактере, на лоу-левел персонаже наносишь финальный удар, то ты получаешь как бы больше экспы на пати. Девочку зовут Карен. Карен Ха. Мемы про Карен.
Person that got infused into the mothership in the game Homeworld.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's the one.
Sweet. Okay.
Что ж, теперь мы получили третьего персонажа. Нам важно, чтобы она пережила путешествие по большей части. Так что мы тоже надеваем шмотки на нее. И встречаемся с первым противником, который спавнит который спавнит, наверное, правильно так будет сказать просто. Или который производит других противников. Таких противников достаточно много в этой игре, которые производят других противников. Более более неприятных. Я даже не знаю, как по-русски. Бык-производитель. В общем, неприятные типы, эти глаза. Производят лучников. Белки-лучники. Вот. Из плюсов на экране может быть всего 3 противника. Поэтому они не производят больше, чем можно на экране.
Robin Hood, then I guess I just don't have to worry about it. Anyway, unfortunately, killing that Robin Hood so quickly caused another Robin Hood that doesn't usually spawn to do so.
Не очень приятно, что мы того лучника убили, потому что появился новый лучник не там, где нам нужно. Так что иногда убивать противников не нужно. Или даже зачастую, если мы деремся, не значит, что мы собираемся их убивать. Спавнера из Майнкрафта. Получается, Майнкрафт украл идею, потому что этой игре миллион лет, 93-го игра. Еще в этой игре замечательные саундтреки. Мне они очень нравятся. Вот, попадаем в первый... Ну, мы, во-первых, были в первом по-настоящему сложном данже, лес. В лесу эти спавнеры и лучники, то есть рейнджевые противники, всегда очень сложно с ними драться. Вот. И мы попадаем в замок, также наш первый замок. Тут музыка не мистическая, а просто как бы обычное путешествие. Противники здесь средненькие, так сказать.
Ace Burrito gives $20 and says, "Wait, why are we removing feet from people? I don't think this behooves our viewing experience. Is SGDQ making a heel turn away from helping people? I'm putting my foot down." Thank you for those donations and those wonderful.
Это небольшой лабиринт, нам нужно знать, куда идти. Ну, в принципе, мы спидранеры, мы знаем. Кажется, он да, здесь все правильно, здесь правильная прокачка. Так, мы добрались до последней комнаты. Здесь мы встретимся с ведьмой. И здесь мы в первый раз начнем использовать глич, который ломает игру полностью. Девочка с нами увязалась, потому что она ищет, кажется, свою подругу и возлюбленного, насколько я понял. Обоих она найдет, и обоих потеряет. Очень такая игра. Как правильно сказать? Подлая или коварная? Ну, неприятная. В любом случае.
Confuse the game's AI.
Вот.
I'll do it first.
Мы надеваем бочку на девочку, и бочка дает неуязвимость. И помещаем девочку насколько можно поближе к противнику. И, к сожалению, котяра выпрыгнул. Шанс того, что он выпрыгнет, я спрашивал, он сказал 50 на 50. Сколько раз я видел, что он спидранил, кошка ни разу не выпрыгнула. Но марафон лак. Он может там сидеть и спамить огонь теперь. С котина. В прямом смысле. Как зато мы можем познакомиться с системой хила. Если нам наносят урон, то во время нанесения урона вы можете использовать какой-то хил. И если вы умирали от того урона, то как бы хил вычитается за счет... Или урон... Из урона вычитается хил, наверное, правильно так. Опять он прыгнул и нокнул... А, просто уронил парня. Ну, не так страшно. Окей, все хорошо. Сейчас мы гличим урон. Мы заставляем... Мы играем... Мы переключаемся на другого персонажа. И игру заставляем заряжать оружие. Говорим: эй, я хочу сделать суперприем. Я хочу, чтобы ты, вот, сделал суперприем на этом пацане. И игра такая: да, окей, я начну заряжать его. Мы заряжаем на один уровень. И когда он начинает заряжать на второй... Точнее, мы заряжаем на один уровень. Потом говорим: окей, игра, один уровень хорошо, но у нас есть два. Давай второй уровень тоже будем заряжать. Он начинает заряжать, и в этот момент переключаем заряд обратно на один. Мы такие: о, нет, стой, передумали. Вот, и игра ломается и начинает заряжать бесконечно. Она заряжает бесконечно в течение где-то, насколько я понял, 60 секунд, после чего сбрасывает заряд обратно на один. Такие дела. А заряды, они как бы увеличивают урон. Если мы используем заряд больше, чем положено, то мы наносим урон большим уровнем меча. Наверное, как-то так можно выразиться. Больше уровень, больше урон. И, в общем, мы наносим 9 урона и уничтожаем противника. Это босс, у которого нет 1000 хп. Поэтому он умер быстро. Ну, быстрее, чем как бы предполагалось. Мы будем использовать и абузить эту механику в большей части драк. Это еще не самая страшная механика. Самая страшная механика — это использование магии в этой игре. Выбор времени действительно влияет на время. Выбор имени действительно влияет на время. Но поскольку это благотворительный марафон, то мы можем собрать деньги на то, чтобы назвать как-то персонажа. А так, да, классически называют их какими-нибудь одинокими символами. Сейчас мы двигаемся к духу воды. По-хорошему, мы должны были получить магию воды в тот момент, когда познакомились с семенем маны первым. Но в итоге игра нас знакомит с магией позже. Я не знаю, почему так сюжетно объяснено, но в итоге мы уничтожаем противника, выигрываем и получаем.
Next up, a minor glitch. I am going to use the magic rope and then talk to Undyne, which will move the conversation over here.
Говорим с Undyne. Получаем магию.
And after this, I'm going to swap the boy's weapon to the pole dart, which we're about to get. and that'll be a good weapon for him to get some weapon experience on. But apart from that, we're going to be making a trip back to Gaia's Navel, which is a place we've been before. We're going to be fighting a bunch
Магия
of
воды
enemies that are
позволяет
very
хилить.
old at this point. So if you want to get some donations
По-моему,
in this,
да,
now is
хилить,
probably a good
морозить
time.
и давать баф
Yeah, we've got plenty. We've
льда
got
на оружие.
$200 from Stinger PA.
Hey, Stinger.
Yeah, they say, just want to say good luck to Crow. I'm super happy he's finally getting to show off his baby of a category, as he has been working on Secret of Mana 1 controller for several years at this point. Best of luck to GDQ staff and volunteers putting on this show for MSF, and let's keep those donations coming. And we've got $50 from David TKI. They say you're not going to lay a finger on that final boss. Donation goes towards defeat. Just one question. What is the Secret of Mana?
The Secret of Mana most likely is found in a cutscene that we never see. That's supposed to happen at the end of the Pure Lands, which we never visit. So, unfortunately, you will have to play the game.
Секрет маны в том, что мы не увидим секрет в этом прохождении. Так что, чтобы увидеть секрет маны, нам придется пройти эту игру самостоятельно. А я не помню секрета, поэтому подсказать вам тоже. В очередной раз запрыгиваем в пушку и перемещаемся в ту местность, которая нам нужна.
Head on over to fangamer.com/GDQ to see our new pullover hoodie, limited edition finale pin, arcade floor face mask, and the very special virtual attendee badges.
И это своего рода бэктрекинг. Мы возвращаемся обратно в данж подземелья гномов, дворфов. Больше грейдить оружие нам не нужно. Второго уровня нам достаточно. Отсюда мы понимаем, что украли камень дворфов. По-моему, да. Вроде бы сильф. Нет, подожди, не сильф. Да, все правильно, камень дворфов. Или семя дворфов.
So we are now in the underground palace. The goblins here are much scarier than the goblins.
Гоблины здесь еще сильнее, чем в первом данже.
The issue is that first of all they wake up automatically instead of waiting for a while, and waiting also for your presence before they wake up. But another big problem with them is that they
очень неприятные гоблины или кобальды. Неприятные они именно тем, что они бросают бумеранги. У нас тоже есть оружие бумеранг, но оно как будто нерфленное, потому что противник может бросать бумеранг в тот момент, как только даже поймал. А вот если мы будем использовать бумеранг, то он должен сначала вернуться к нам в руку, потом мы должны восстановить нашу силу, и тогда мы можем бросить бумеранг снова. Тренируемся немножко в магии. У каждого будет свой уровень магии. У каждого будет свой элемент магии.
Which will allow me to obliterate a lot of enemies, especially in the mid-game with the freeze spell. Freeze, despite being the first damage spell we've gotten, is actually the strongest one in the game.
Мы получаем
it's every bit as much damage as the
способность заморозку. И она является самой сильной магией. Мы ее сейчас заспамим на боссе, и он...
just forgot to do an extra physical attack on this guy as the fight began, which I'm sure is not going to be a problem at all. Anyway, and then I messed up the chain on that.
И он зафейлил цепочку урона. Важно очень наносить урон в цикле. То есть вы видели, были большие цифры, это потому что урон застакался. И пока он как бы стакает урон, все круто. А если он перестает стакать урон, может все плохо кончиться. Чем хороша категория того, что мы типа на 3 персонажа, того, что урон АОЕ спелов делится на всех персонажей. Как бы у каждого спела есть свой определенный урон, и он делится между персонажами. Если бы у нас было меньше, то, соответственно, было бы больше урона.
Almost always one physical attack and 8 spell casts, which is what I ultimately did there once I got everything straightened out. Should handle this guy just fine. But if he winds up getting some good defense against the spells, then sometimes I'll need a second attack, and unfortunately, because I just forgot to do the first attack, that meant that the second attack I did later was substituting the first and wasn't giving me the extra safety in case I got low damage rolls. So the marathon run's going about as you would expect a marathon run to go, but we survived. We're moving forward, and overall,
драка прошла как обычно для марафона, как и первая драка, которая пошла не по плану, так и эта драка пошла не по плану. Поговорим с семенем маны и телепортанимся отсюда. Мы должны будем получить магию дворфов в скором времени.
The only thing that you need in order to get into the next dungeon turns out to be that talking to gnome. So,
что нужно сделать, чтобы перейти в следующее подземелье? Поговорить с гномом.
Sealing that seed gives me the ability to start leveling up my magic to higher heights. Each mana seed that you seal gives you more bonus damage on your high damage rolls, and it gives you another level that you can get your magic elements leveled up to. So we are now up to a maximum level of 2, but previously we were at a maximum level of 1. So this will be...
Итак, мы стараемся максить оружие. У каждого оружия есть свой лимит по количеству орбов, которые мы съели для этого оружия. Шаров, силы, так сказать. И нам важно прокачать каждое оружие максимально, сколько мы можем, потому что финальный урон оружия у пацана, а именно меч, маны, считает урон по количеству прокачанных уровней. И он складывает уровни всех орудий, которые были прокачаны на любом персонаже. Так что мы прокачиваем оружие. По крайней мере, стараемся это делать.
Turns out to be the girl's hometown. This is where Diluc is from. It's also where the girl's friend Fauna is also chilling, and she's currently in the southern section of town.
Нас опять катапультируют в нужную нам точку, попадаем в город и находим подругу Карен, Фана, или, ну да, Фана, в принципе. Вот. И мы находим ее еще раз уже в храме. Все посходили с ума. Вот. И попадаем в первый по-настоящему сложный подземелье или замок. Наверное, замок, потому что он... Это лабиринт, похлеще того лабиринта, который был до этого. И любая комната, она не прощает, она просто овнит очень жестко. Если ты не на уровне, у тебя недостаточно ресурсов, тебя быстро очень развалит. И тут музыка... даже не знаю, как это называется. Ну, в общем, музыка подземелья. Важно очень знать рисунки каждой комнаты, примерно как перемещаются противники И что нужно делать, чтобы переместить противников в правильную сторону, в правильное положение относительно нас. Потому что нам нужно по-хорошему большую часть времени просто бежать, использовать быстрый бег как можно чаще, как можно больше. Просто противники могут нас застанлочить очень легко, начав стабильно наносить урон. И всё.
At identifying which way you're going if you're moving diagonally. So by dashing diagonally up and left into the wall, even though I was only moving horizontally, the fact that I was trying to go diagonal caused a tomato man not to show up at the top of the stairs. That tomato man turns out to be a big pain, so despawning him is nice. There are a bunch of other places in the game where I'll use a similar trick. Or other cases where I'll just try to intentionally get enemies to spawn before moving.
Как, в принципе, я уже раньше объяснял, мы пытаемся проходить по подземелью или замку максимально оптимально, чтобы противники появлялись так, как нам нужно, чтобы они нас не заовнили, потому что у нас underlevel, мы намного меньше уровнем, и оборудование у нас уже устарело, то есть у нас оборудование первого города, а мы уже в нескольких побывали. И еще ничего не покупали, если что. Деньги у нас есть, но не покупали еще ничего. Вот это первый босс, стена из двух. И нам нужно просто закидать его магией, и он свалится. Стена свалится.
So as long as I get pretty good damage rolls, it'll be fine. Otherwise, I'm going to have to wait for all the MP to get filed into the sprite here. You'll see 2 sets of 50 in a row.
Как вы можете видеть, используем магию гнома.
And he is dead. Okay, good. Got slightly lucky on those damage rolls. If I had gotten a little bit lower, the left eye would have taken his first turn, and the left eye has as an option that he can do a cure water spell.
Самое ужасное, что могло сейчас произойти, это левый глаз бы начал ходить, и он мог похилить стену. И было бы печально.
So Thanatos runs off, he releases most of the villagers, but holds on to Dialogue and Fana just so that he has that on the girl's mind. Anyway, okay, needed the woman there to move away from Gemma. I need to talk to Gemma to get out of this region, but I believe that younger woman there will actually take priority over Gemma if I try to talk to both of them at once. So I had to wait for her to separate. In any case, it is now time for me to
Так, я медленно, наверное,
once
засыпаю.
again to Gaia's Navel. This is a place we visit a lot of times. This isn't the last time we're going to visit there either. But since the trip is not especially dangerous, and since
Как вы можете заметить, персонажи тупят, не могут застрять где-нибудь, что заставляет нас либо переключиться, либо вернуться назад. Это неприятно, и желательно, чтобы это не происходило.
Yeah, you got it. And here's an answer for how we got one of our nicknames tonight. Anonymous donates $2,000, saying, after 3 decades of trying, I was recently able to play through this thanks to my friend, Nico. Thank you, Nico. Now I can watch this without getting spoiled.
Донат на 2000 баксов, четко.
Yeah, we've got Jag34 gives $50, saying, what? Beat the final boss using only feet? Yep, donating. Thank you for that donation. And that's right, we are getting real close. We're at 78.43 out of 8,000 to get the any percent 1 player 1 controller to turn into 1 player 2 feet to defeat the final boss. So make sure you're getting that closed out. We've got $10 from Greetings from Chile.
Ведь
Says,
бэк к тречам. Отправляемся в подземелье гномов. Тут нас ждут воры семени.
And I've got $10 from Josh Adams. This commentary for the Secret of Mana run is brilliant and detailed. It makes the run even more enjoyable. Well done, Crow.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at this point we are going to meet the next set of villains. Up to this point we've seen Thanatos. We're about to meet the Scorpion Army. These guys are kind of the comic relief bad guys. They are trying to convert mana power into making money.
Эти вот парни, которых мы встретили, они являются псевдозлодеями в этой вселенной. И они пытаются выкачать силу семени, маны, мана дерева, и создать вот какое-то оружие. Вот они начали с робота. Неплохой робот, достаточно сильный и неприятный бой. В принципе, если все правильно расставлено, много проблем не составит.
So I will use the overcharge attacks against him instead. Unfortunately, this is the first boss I'm going to use overcharge against that has an evasion rating. So somewhere around a little under 40%, I would say, of the time, whenever I try to attack this guy, he's just not going to take any damage. This time, we did hit the first try, which is great. Because if we didn't, eventually Kilroy would have had an opportunity to do a spinning attack with his hammers, and his hammers will inflict the Moogle status effect, which will turn your characters into cute little Moogles, who unfortunately cannot attack. The girl would have been safe from that because she was wearing a barrel.
Ну да, высадите, действительно, так и есть.
The boy could have had his attempt,
Я проспал весь босс-файт, но в общем он состоит из того, что робот может крутиться, а если он задевает нас, то во время кручения он превращает задетые цели в мугла. Мугл ничего не может сделать. Что, естественно, отвратительно, особенно если вы заряжаете оружие. Потому что заряд спадет сразу же. Я так понимаю, все нормально получилось.
And I don't usually get both flowers showing up here. At this point, the boy does not have a weapon he needs any weapon experience equipped right now, so the sprite can get some weapon experience. I do eventually need him to participate in the overcharge, but that's not for a while. There's no real rush on getting that to happen. At this point, I will go to the Water Palace, and I'm going to fight Jabberwocky.
Don't forget to save.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Crow.
Jabberwocky is a dangerous fight.
Crow, I've got some good news. I hope you've been flexing your toes, because we have just met the 1 player 2 feet defeat the final boss incentive.
Он показывает в кадре ногу. Короче, чтобы победить последнего босса, он будет использовать ноги. Настоящий Чад Гейминг. Mad Lad. Blindfolded. Слишком легко. Победить босса ногами. Вот это челлендж.
Is that a while ago I was dealing with carpal tunnel, and I still wanted to play video games, but you know that was hard to justify wasting my wrist usage time on. So my solution for speedrunning was to pull out an old arcade stick style controller called the Super Advantage. You can look it up. Or you just wait around and you'll see a picture of it pretty soon.
Окей, значит, чтобы проще было играть и не напрягать сильно руки, он играет на стике. Видимо, на файтер-стике. Эти противники. Псевдозлодеи снова появились. Этот раз всеми украли и будут с нами биться. Битва, драка. Толстые тела. И то самое, короче. Тут у нас Гидра. Она убивается, в принципе, достаточно легко.
That he can throw at you that can, with a low-level party like this, quickly to game over unless, well, you can handle it properly. He usually doesn't even cast any spells. Well, usually. Also, Crow just threw one spell at him before he started the overcharge with the boy. This is to both add a little bit of damage to the chopper block here, but also on top of that, well, you're already done. I'm way too slow.
Лег,
On top of
чаще.
that kind of buffer that he can deal or attack with the overcharges more safely. Also, I think you did a
Как вы можете заметить, после босса нам дают
Yes, I
какой-то
did get
определенный
the
шар.
charge retain there.
Просто шар с
There's a
луком.
trick in the multiple controller run where you can just do that all the time with every attack and just never drop your overcharge. With the one controller run, you have to rely on frame rules where you swap control from the sprite to the boy in this case. And while I did that, I also had I started pressing the B button as I did so, and this gave me the initial attack because I was swapping characters and the character was not pressing the B button as I swapped in. But then because I started pressing B soon thereafter, the game never dropped the charge state, so I was able to do a second charge. But once I release that, there's no continuing from there. I get 2 shots and that's it. In this case, it turned out to be necessary. I unleashed the first attack too early and got a low damage roll, and because the combination of things happened, Jabberwocky didn't wind up going down at first. But eventually my Vorpal blade did go sufficiently snicker snack. Haloo, Calais. Lewis Carroll reference there for anyone that didn't get it. I have enchanted the boy's weapon with Stone Saber. Stone Saber will petrify enemies as it scores hits 75% of the time. A petrified enemy loses half of their HP and then takes the damage from your strike. And then also they're stunned for a while. It is brutal. And anytime where you do want to fight normal enemies, I highly recommend having Stone Saber active. It is really good. So the primary point of Stone Saber here is actually not the easy little enemies I was just fighting there. It's these enemies in this region here. I do want to get some whip experience with the boy again. For anyone that's
Пытаемся получить побольше опыта на пацане.
trying to get weapon experience on the boy without getting full weapon levels, because that weapon experience is overcounted when it comes to adding in bonus damage to the final form of the mana sword during the
Хочу спать,
final
сори.
battle. So that'll hopefully get me into a
Попадаем
state
в
where I
лес
can
4
eventually
сезонов. Тут есть весна, осень, лето и зима.
the final boss in a
Так, я так
single
понимаю, я
cycle.
проспал битву с
Assuming
ежами.
I execute correctly, using
А, нет, не проспал, вот еще битва
some
с ежами
digits that
будет.
have slightly less
Ежи
dexterity than
захватили
normal, shall we
город,
say.
в котором
But
жили
hopefully we'll be able to do it.
муглы.
In
Им
any
нужна
case,
помощь.
I
Надо
am
было
just
поговорить
gonna
с муглом, так
blast
что он
the Pebbler
сначала с ним
here
поговорил, а
with
теперь
magic.
освобождает их дело.
Again, I could use the overcharge.
Easy every time.
In the multiple controller run, although that run does usually just solve most of its boss fights with some form of the weapon overcharge glitch, there is still a fair amount of nuance to it. One example can actually be found here, where the whirlwind style attack, where your character just starts swinging the sword and does some spin to win action and flies all the way across the screen and all over the place, that can be used to usually hit all 3 pebblers at once. And you can actually pick that with the power of pause buffering, which is a thing that is practical to do with the multiple controller version of weapon overcharge. Here, though, because I can't really rely on getting the whirlwind attack, it is definitely worthwhile for me to just simply go ahead and use magic instead. I'm going to need the magic experience later anyway, so it's no real big deal for me to go ahead and pick it up now. Unfortunately, the boy just got confused, which is going to be a problem. Confusion causes your character's inputs to be reversed. This even includes when you're in menus. So right there, I press down and then A in order to dash upward. And I don't know when it's going to wear off. So once I get out of this cutscene, I don't know if I'm going to be confused still or not. So I'm going to switch over to control the girl.
У нас
So
тут
that I don't
якобы
have to worry
босс.
about that.
Птица
So
на
this
длинных
is
ногах.
Thornbeak. He is weak against gnome elemental.
И почему-то он
spells.
слабак к
Unfortunately,
гномим элементарным атакам.
Springbeak's titular beak happens to be a giant shield. And because between that and also the fact that your weapons are much larger than they normally are during boss fights, as far as, you know, actually detecting hits on the enemy is concerned, throw all that together and hitting this guy with an overcharge is pretty unlikely. Another big problem is actually the same problem that would have been posed. I don't actually need to do that. I do, however, want to do this. Okay. Another significant problem for that is the fact that Springbeak jumps around. And whenever he's high in the air, he's too far away from my allies for them to continue trying to attack. If my allies aren't trying to attack, they aren't charging up. If they aren't charging up, I can't get them to do the overcharge glitch. So any enemy that jumps, disappears, or makes themselves invincible for a lot of the time in other ways, those sorts of enemies tend to be ones I use magic against instead of physical attacks. So at this point, I'm going to talk with the sprite's grandfather, and we will pick up the Sylphid spirit, which will give us the ability to cast wind elemental spells. Unfortunately, those spells kind of suck. The strong one, Thunderbolt, has too fast of an animation for it to be practical. It won't stun lock enemies, which means that if you're using that to deal damage to enemies, they get to fight back. And you don't want bosses in this game to actually get to do anything if you can avoid it. You'd much rather continuously stack spells and make that not a thing. Anyway, I am actually going to go ahead, because he offers to save the game, let's just do it and have that extra little bit of safety there. And then I am going to once more use the magic rope and then trigger a cutscene. Oddly enough, if the seed is on the altar and is not spinning, you can be above it and then face away from it. And that, for some unknown reason, will allow you to talk with the seed. So I did that in order to talk with it from behind, rather than dealing with the stairway, which, if you've noticed, stairways in this game stop you from running, which is not a happy thing for a speedrunner. So these silk tails will conveniently stack themselves up, and I actually failed to get those kills onto the boy as I had intended. It'll be okay, though. I have some leeway on exactly how much weapon experience I get on the boy. I do want a bunch, though. This crystal orb responds to the air blast spell. That's why I needed to pick up Sylphid. If it weren't for that one crystal orb, if we could figure out some way to hack the crystal orbs and make them respond to the wrong spell without having had the right spell at all, that would help a lot. It would skip Springbeak. It would skip, honestly, the entire underground palace, most likely, because there are some weird glitches that would be relevant in that case. But to our knowledge, that's not a thing that can happen. For now, I do need to pick up the axe for a bit, so I will pick up some weapon experience on the axe as we go through, just because it's free for us to do so. I'll talk about why in a bit. But I need the axe also to bust the boulders in that cave right there. Coming up is a glitch that's somewhat famous for being able to return into Potos. What's going to happen is I'm going to mash the select button, and that's going to let me pass through this guard where I was supposed to have to talk with the king here, King Truffle of Matango. But the reason that works is that each time you swap control, that is actually super unfortunate right there. Oh, and we get Sleep Flower, of course. Actually, that's fine. Okay, so the reason the select mash works is that if you swap control, you get one frame where you act as if you were a AI controlled character instead of a having a bit of trouble with the normal enemies here. That's why I'm kind of stuttering on commentary. Yagamoth, want to take over for a bit here?
Sure. Real quick about this area. This is one of the most difficult areas to run through as a speedrunner. And by the way, just kind of as a heads up for anybody who may have joined later, the reason why the category is called one player, one controller is because the standard category we tend to run is 2 controllers. And they also actually skip one of the characters, so that means you're not getting stopped as much in this area, which still makes it really difficult to do efficiently and quickly. Having a 3rd character trailing behind you that you have to somehow get through here too makes it extra difficult. So basically, one player, one controller is, generally speaking, a fair bit more difficult than one player, 2 controller. So that's a thing. Also, the reason why you can pass through NPCs is as long as your weapons are not run, as in you're not in combat mode, AI control characters can walk through NPCs, and you basically just let your your AI control character, pixel by pixel, just walk slightly further through the NPC if you just mash select and push against them, as long as your camera is in the correct position. Also, Crow is using another little trick here where he's actually casting some spells, and then at the end he casts the correct spell to activate this orb in order to open up the passage. That allows him to, well, just do this slightly more efficiently because the trigger triggers slightly earlier. I'm not entirely sure about the exact mechanics for that. That's a lot of medical herbs used.
Yeah, I'm down to 3 now. That's ridiculous. I don't think I have ever been that low at this point. I mean, it wouldn't be a GDQ marathon run if everything were going to plan, I guess, but sheesh. They're getting really excited with all the status effects there. So I will get to have a fairly straightforward fight against Great Viper here. Great Viper is weak against Sylphid. I've already complained about Sylphid's magic, so that should explain why I'm not using it. Another reason I'm not using it is that one of the other bosses down the line that's supposed to be weak against Sylphid is a boss we now know how to skip altogether. So with no benefit down the line for leveling up Sylphid, I'm instead just going to level up Undyne, which will be a generically powerful spell that is very convenient because of its ability to keep enemies stunned for a long time in addition to all the other stuff it does. So that should allow me to get through the rest of the game pretty easily, or at least up until the point where the sprite's magic ceases to be useful to me, which will be about the same time we gain the ability to fly. We'll talk about that once we get there, but for now I have defeated Great Viper, and I've also gained a whole bunch of weapon experience on the boy for no reason. There are a few bosses in this game, and incidentally, the next one that also does this is the next boss we're going to fight. But there are some bosses that, as either the boss fight begins or as it ends, or in some cases both, the boy is treated as if he had defeated some enemies with his weapon as far as gaining weapon experience is concerned. My guess in the case of the Great Viper is that it has something to do with the way they coded the various little orbs that make up his tail. So as those are deleted from the screen, he gets a bunch of weapon experience as if he had slain them. But I'm not sure why exactly that would have to happen, but it does. In any case, we have now rescued Flammy. Flammy will eventually be our ticket to flying, but right now he's a little small. He'll join up with us again later, but for now, King Truffle will take care of him. I will take a very brief detour here to Watts in order to upgrade the sword. This is to get some free weapon experience onto the sword for the boy, because whenever the boy now kills an enemy with the weapon overcharge glitch, which will happen from time to time, he will get weapon experience for that now, which will give him a little bit more damage on the final boss, and as we all know, the final boss is super important. Anyway, I At this point, I am going to go through a canon travel section, and then I'm going to get lost in the desert. I'm going to wander around in the desert until eventually I get picked back up. It's a fairly straightforward procedure, so if you have some donations to read, now would be a good time for it.
I sure do, and here's one that seems pretty appropriate. Lord Licorice donates $50 and says, Secret of Mana is my childhood, and I'm glad to see it at Games Done Quick. Say hi to Flammy for me.
Hi.
All right, and then here come the puns. We've got Anonymous with $10 that says, okay, I'll toe the line and kick in a few to bring this donation incentive to heal. And we've got Miltonius Prime with $20 saying, anyone promoting foot-related puns is my arch enemy. Oh, man, what did I ask for here?
Does that mean he's his own arch enemy?
Seems like it. And we have an anonymous donation for $3,000. Thank you so much for that generous donation.
Wow, that's crazy.
Casey Stranger donates $50, saying, donating a quarter for every time my AI teammates got themselves killed during my Secret of Mana playthrough. Comes out to about 200 times if my math is right.
Yeah, it is actually a very important skill to gain if you do pick up any category of this game, to learn how it is the AI behaves. Because some of it is random, but a lot of it is not. A lot of the time, the way they try to form up with you is dependent on things you have control on. For example, if you walk vertically or horizontally versus if you walk diagonally, their behavior is completely different. Also, if you dash into a wall, a lot of the time that'll get them to form up on you if you need them to do that. But yes, they are very bad at figuring out how to get around an obstacle, and sometimes you just have to know which kinds of obstacles are going to be problems, and oh wow, we have some NPC trolling coming up here, oh, don't we? Okay, actually it was a lot less bad than it looked like it was going to be for a second there. Those guys can block the exit for a while, potentially, as I try to leave. Anyway, I guess I should talk a little bit about what's happening in the plot now. So we have gotten lost in the desert. We were picked up by a Republic sand ship. There is a Republic and there is an Empire. Guess which side's the good side. Standard logic there. No! Get out of there. Oh no.
I know.
There's
exactly
no way to
happening.
fish this guy out. You can't pass through either because you cannot scroll the camera. You cannot scroll the screen. You cannot move the camera while you select mash. That's the big limitation on it. So I have had to wait there for 2.5 minutes one time. That wasn't too bad there, but it's somehow the SNES just knows when you're on a marathon run. It just knows. Anyway,
wow, that's great.
The Republic ship is unfortunately run by a bunch of morons. The boy, Gammon, who's from some random backwater village, is assigned to taking care of the engines. The sprite, Nico, is assigned to the food and promptly eats it all. And Miss Sundara, Karen, is assigned to pampering the captain, and that goes about as well as you'd expect it to. So then the Empire attacks, and everyone immediately surrenders, except for us. So we will fight back, and we will fight back with magic. We could use the overcharge here, but there's a few reasons not to. For one thing, this is another one of those bosses that will give me a bunch of weapon experience for no reason. So the fact that I'm holding the axe gives me more weapon experience because I am currently at level 0 with the axe, and the higher your current weapon experience is, the less experience you get per kill. And there winds up being a bunch of like truncation that happens too that makes the problem even more exacerbated there. But in any case, this should be enough magic to take this guy out. He only has like 1200-ish HP. It's not too bad to deal with. Another reason to not attack him with the overcharge is that he will start just dashing across the screen if he does survive. And Whenever he's dashing across the screen, it's really hard to keep up with him and get your AI to charge up for another attempt. Also, his dash tends to knock your characters unconscious, which also slows you down. So rather than dealing with any of that, we instead have magic. There's a lot of generic looking guards here. Only one of them will get you out of the area there when you're left stranded in the desert. It's always the same one though, so as long as you keep proper track of it, you can go there immediately, even though it is pretty confusing if you're playing casually, because after you've talked to 3, you're not sure which one is the last one anymore, because a lot of them have been walking around randomly off screen. At this point, I am going to pick up a bunch of equipment. This will serve 2 purposes. One, it's going to be throwing away fodder for my equipment trashing glitch. I'm going to do that again. I did it once a long time ago, whenever I was at the beginning of the game and getting everything set up. But I will, at this point, do it again because I have brought myself down to 2 remaining walnuts on my first 2 item slots. I did a glitch in order to have 3 walnut slots in the first place, if you weren't here for the beginning. And I then did a glitch to give myself 0 of each of them. I'm going to repeat that glitch, and that glitch will bring me from 2 to 0, or if I make a mistake, it can bring me from 3 down to 1, which is a disaster, and I don't want that to happen ever. Oops, wrong menu. Another reason I need to do equipment at this point is just the fact that the enemies in the area I'm right about to go into are terrifying. The Howlers are cute little doggies, but they are also extremely powerful, and their attacks come out very quickly. This armor versus the armor I had before is the difference between my characters just kind of getting knocked backwards versus my characters getting slammed into the ground. So it's a pretty big difference, and I will have to focus a bit here. So Yakima, if you could take over.
Yes, indeed. The ice country is the other area I would consider to be pretty much the biggest hurdle in a speedrun. These howlers are not only really fast, but their attack hitbox whenever they attack is huge, and it comes out pretty much immediately. So getting hit by these things is pretty much normal. Crow actually ended up using the petrification weapon here some more, just kind of to stun them in place so they, well, don't hit him all the time. So he just tries to hit them and petrify them, which works most of the time. Also, little fun fact, elemental enchants for your weapons actually don't deal elemental damage. They are still neutral damage, although your damage is very slightly increased. Also, Boreal Phase coming up. Should I take over?
Go for it.
Alrighty, so Boreal Phase, pretty much in this game, the maximum damage you can deal with one number, or that one swing, is 999, minus whatever enemy defense. And this guy here will at least take 2 hits. And if Crow managed to get the sprite's weapon experience high enough, he will be able to have both the sprite and the boy overcharge their weapons at the same time, and hopefully both of them hit the Boreal Phase at more or less the same time, so he is going to instantly die rather than burrow down in the ground. However, this once again comes with the caveat that enemies in this game, well, they just have a chance to dodge your attacks at this point. And the game actually doesn't do a particularly good job at telling you whether you missed or whether you just straight up didn't hit their hitbox. Most of the time, you see casual people honestly kind of rightfully complain that the hitboxes in this game are a bit janky. But largely that is also because the game just doesn't tell you that, hey, your chance to hit was just not good enough with your damage roll, so try again. In this case, he managed to actually knock him down, so good job.
That was a pretty good example of how speedrunning this game goes. I made a very minor mistake there in not reacting quite fast enough to realizing that Boreal Face spawned on one of the top portions. And because I was slightly slow, that meant my characters didn't get in position in time, which put me at the mercy of RNG. If everything had been executed correctly by me there, I could have gotten 2 attempts at the overcharge in Boreal Face's first spawning location, but because I made a very small mistake at the beginning, I was at the mercy of RNG and it didn't work out. I wound up having to revive the sprite, which I actually did with a Royal Jam. Not very well documented feature in this game is that some healing actions can heal characters that are currently at 0 HP if you get them in time, and some can't. Royal Jam is one that can. That's why I bought that instead of either chocolate or candy whenever I was doing my initial shopping with Nico. So at this point, I am going to go out of Ice Country. I have gotten all that I needed here. All I wanted was just simple. Oh, the boy got caught. All I wanted here was Salamando. Salamando is the fire spirit, and the Scorpion army, once again, was trying to make money by using him to power a stove to make a little tropical paradise in the middle of Ice Country here. However, now that we have Salamando, we are not going to continue with the rest of this area. What's supposed to be next is, if you were paying really close attention, you may have noticed that we actually passed by a red-nosed reindeer. If I talked with them, I would have discovered that it was, in fact, Rudolph, who was complaining that Santa was in trouble. We are supposed to, at this point, be saving Christmas. We're not going to. Instead, we're going to do a whole lot of shenanigans in the Fire Palace, because the whole thing we're supposed to get from saving Christmas is the Fire Palace Mana Seed. But there's some weird mechanics there, and this whole segment is very strange and requires a lot of focus from me. So Yagamoth, it's all you.
Sure. Alrighty, Crow is going to, as mentioned, basically skip activating one of the orbs with Salamander spells in the basement where there's lava. And by skipping that, he is going to be able to actually seal the mana seed at the end. So that's kind of the main thing he is doing here, but he doesn't have to complete the Ice Palace. Either way, in order to skip that thing in the basement, he's going to equip everybody with a barrel, and then he's also going to heal everybody at the same time and have everybody, including his AI control characters, run up at the same time, straight up, which this little ramp here normally pushes you down faster than you can run up it, but because he has both barrels equipped and also is just holding up, for some reason the game doesn't check that he is supposed to get pushed down, and he just slides straight up the quick exit of the castle, or well, the Fire Palace. Then he has to activate some more orbs here in order to get through the rest of the temple. And I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you can probably see a lot of the shenanigans he does. At the end, what Crow is going to do when he comes up to the last orb that he's supposed to activate with Undini's spell Freeze in order to make the staircase appear to the final boss of this place, the Minotaur, he's actually going to cast Freeze twice. This will allow Crow to effectively carry over an event or an event flag into the next room where the Minotaur spawns. And normally what's supposed to happen when you enter Minotaur's room is you walk into the room and then torches appear at the entrance and at the exit, and you are locked into the room. However, because he's going to use very precise timing to activate the, well, the entire freeze shenanigans with the sprite twice, he's going to effectively carry that torch event into the next room. The torches, or well, the chandeliers at the beginning and entrance are never going to spawn, and he can just run straight through the boss. He can't technically defeat the boss as he wanted to, but well, he can just skip the Minotaur entirely, which is way faster. Also, fun fact, Minotaur does not have a hitbox, so he can run straight through him. And the entire purpose of this is sealing the Mana Seed of Fire, which unlocks the cannon travel to the next area. Nice.
Yep, basically went to plan. The Robin Foot that I did the whip post walk through walls with was a little uncooperative. I need him to start casting magic so he'll stay put while I get the boy to target him from a long enough distance to actually walk through walls as I attack the whip post. But he did a few shots before casting magic, but he did eventually cast magic, so we did get to at least do that glitch too. Whip posts in this game you'll see me use to walk through walls in a variety of ways. Essentially, the core problem is that each time you attack a whip post, the game first allows you to walk through walls, then it decides whether to have you jump forward while you can walk through walls. And then if you are attacking the whip post from the right location with a whip, then you will do the jump over, but you get the brief moment of walking through walls anyway, which you can have an AI take advantage of. It's a lot easier to do on one controller, but on multiple controllers, but with one controller and a little bit of creative positioning, you can eventually convince your AI characters to meander over the wall that you're trying to pass. That trick done correctly saves like 7 seconds compared to just going the very slight detour over to use the whip post properly. But hey, it's a speed run. Every little bit counts. I need to make up for some of the marathon RNG I've been getting. Anyway, I'm going to pass through another guard here. I have 2 ways I can do it, and I think I have the better way this time. Yes, I do. So the guard is supposed to block the entrance to the sewers, but he won't trigger if you're on the exact correct pixel, which essentially you have a 50-50 chance of it, and you get 1 chance to check and then edit if you're wrong. Each frame that you move, if you are walking, oh wow, those slimes were actually the worst right there. I'm going to have to use another freeze. Yagamoth, take over. I'm having some trouble with the sewers.
Alrighty. Each time you just do regular walking in this game, you walk 2 pixels per frame, which effectively means that because of parity, you might not get exactly like close up 0 pixels next to the wall, which means you cannot actually just walk past that guard. The alternative way of getting past that guard would just be doing the select trick again that we used back in Matango in order to just get by him if he does get activated. Also, the sewers area here is a really mean one. I usually choose the slightly slower path of just casting balloon on all these enemies because they are often very mean. Also, fun fact, if you have the boy being a snowman, which happens if you get hit by these blue slimes once in a while, and walk into this cutscene, you actually will soft lock. It's kind of curious.
Yeah, it's not the only serious glitch that can happen, serious detrimental
Я хотя бы
glitch that can
проснулся
happen,
немного.
with snowman in that area.
Попечатал.
If you
Это типа
cure
база
a character of the
противостояния
summoning
чему-то
status,
там,
while the
но
numbers,
я сюжетно
from
так
the
и не,
damage they
не
took
помню.
turned them
Не
into a
помню, как
snowman
что там.
are still up. The game will allow the character to move around while still looking like a snowman for a bit. In that period of time, if you wind up pushing an enemy, the pushing animation loads incorrectly, and the glitchy animation it does winds up deleting.
Посещаем снова храм. Такой же примерно храм у города, у которого мы были уже. Тут также люди посходили с ума, их зомбировали. Снова встречаемся с подругой Карен. Дадим ей леща. Таким образом разбудим ее немножко. Но на самом деле она уже сама не своя. Не помню, как этого мага зовут. Сейчас, может. Посмотрим.
For a while, it was one of those mysteries that we would occasionally hear people talk about, but we couldn't quite figure out how to reproduce. But eventually we did. In any case, we have now traveled from the first area in the Empire that we were at, the South Town, and we traveled northward to, you guessed it, Northtown. Great naming scheme.
Замок сам по себе не очень длинный, но супер противный. У него огромное количество комнат с очень маленьким пространством. Комнаты просто битвы буквально. Вот. Каждая комната должна выполняться в правильном... Правильно, наверное, так правильно будет сказать. Просто правильно. Нужно выполнять комнату правильно, чтобы не получить урон, не умереть, не быть разодранным в счастье. Как вы могли видеть, сейчас девочка бежала вроде бы влево, но вниз мы направляли. Это то, как раз о чем я говорил, что игра не успевает иногда проверить информацию, потому что она проверяет информацию каждые 5 кадров. Или в 5 этапов, 5 кадров. Спасибо, Дашик. Thank you very much, man. Вот, соответственно, манипулируем противниками, насколько это возможно, и выполняем квесты по замку и валим. В этой игре есть сложности с попадением по противнику. Если вы бьете по противнику, у вас есть какой-то шанс, что вы промажете. Шанс, он как-то посчитан в игре. По вам атаки всегда проходят, но они всегда, атаки всегда снижаются количеством шмоток на вас надетых и армором. Дальше.
I'm trying to reduce the number of imps that show up in the cul-de-sac there that I pull my party through in order to press that button. I've made it through now, so we're all fine, but wound up being a little bit scarier than it should have been.
Окей, мы проскочили и попадаем ко второму боссу. Это супер... Опять же, использую слово супер, но эта игра реально выматывает, она забирает все ресурсы. Если вы входите в этот данж неподготовленным, на этом боссе у вас будут проблемы, потому что нету ресурсов. Ресурсы с противников почти не падают. Падают сундучки с не очень большим шансом, с достаточно маленьким шансом, и в котором могут быть ресурсы, но обычно не самые полезные. Вот. Поскольку мы спидранером все знаем, доходим до босса стены еще раз. Другого, второго, последнего босса стены. Вот. И после этого босса есть еще один босс. Перед ним у вас нет возможности ни похилиться, ни закупиться, ничего. Вы, конечно, можете вернуться назад, но это огромное количество потраченного времени. Вашего. Не говоря уже о спидране. О времени в спидране. Самое лучшее, конечно же, решение уничтожения боссов — это забросать их магией. Да, Эйлак.
In the multiple controller run, because that run does not practice magic at all, so using freeze against vampire is really not an option. So they have to try to hit
Танатос. Танатос тут у нас противник. Танатос пытается собрать все семена маны и что-то там сделать. Но еще он умирает, и поэтому ему нужны тела, чтобы собрать с них энергию и перевоплотиться.
Just makes the whole affair really annoying. I've heard him called troll pyre, for example, or
тут у нас
whenever that
опять же Танатос. Нашу девочку, которую убили, телепортировали, чтобы забрать энергию, но она сейчас проснется. Вот. Из-за того, что Дайлок нам как бы объяснил все. И сейчас у нас будет битва с вампиром. Очень неприятная. Опять же, мы не можем заряжать мяч, потому что противник все время в движении. Что спамим магией? Пытаемся спамить вовремя.
I find it pretty fun. Thanks for those who chose this name. Let's walk through the final boss with our feats. And I just wanted to give a little hype here.
Французский
We're
говорит
only
нам, что
$1,400
гейминг
away
или
from hitting
гамин
that
это
100K.
ребенок на
Let's
французском.
go, everybody. Let's get some donations rolling in and try to hit this before midnight. Well, midnight where I am, at least.
Тем временем мы пытаемся уничтожить вампира, закидываем его бластами, льдом, льдышками, после чего пытаемся немножко пару кадров подождать, чтобы урон посчитал. Потому что если мы перевалим за 999 урона, он не перевалит.
This donation was a spur of the moment idea, and I was hoping I would nail it. But if we aren't going by the 575 digits, then I guess I'll just walk away. Puns are my Achilles heel, you see. Yawgmoth and Crow, have the secret of mana knowledge. Bring Flammy to heal. Thank you for that donation and all the donations coming in.
Я снова засыпаю. Ну, осталось час спидрана.
Says Secret of Mana, so excited for this run. And Finn gives 25.
Мне игра правда
Saying
нравится,
Secret of
просто
Mana
я
is one
очень
of my
мало
favorite
спал,
games
поэтому я
and one of the first games I ever played with my dad. Thank you so much for playing it and for all the hope the GDQ brings every year.
Что ж, 2 босса уничтожено, и теперь можем продолжать сюжетку. Хватаемся за веревку, которая выпускает нас наружу.
A amusing little trick that involves letting the boy die. If the boy is dead, he will follow the party around as a ghost. Ghost characters never have their weapons out, and therefore
противники, NPC, правильно сказать, стопят наших персонажей, только если на них есть какое-то оружие. Снять оружие как бы нельзя, но можно, если вы умер, и вы находитесь в стадии призрака. Соответственно, мы сейчас умираем на парне и отправляемся в нужную локацию, где заставим пацана пройти через союзников, которые блокируют вход, и сломать порядок действий, так сказать, в очередной раз.
Should, or Gammon, I suppose, should walk upward through the guard in order to try to meet up with the sprite, who at that point will be the party leader. So that's where we're going to go here. The boy is dead. The sprite will paralyze himself by using a walnut. Сейчас мы, чтобы пройти здесь, должны призракам пройти через эту охрану. И мы сейчас разделимся, заставим девочкой закинуть призрака пацана в правильную точку. Если мы будем двигаться в одном месте, то пацан или призрак в нас запрыгнет. Сейчас, отлично, со второго раза, это очень хорошо. Наша задача была девочке убежать на ту сторону и чуть-чуть повыше подняться, чтобы пацан там застрял наверняка. После этого воскрешаем его. И все. Достаточно одному персонажу пройти через ворота переноса в другую локацию, и вас переносит. So the fact that I don't have to deal with that is nice. More importantly, the fact that I don't have to deal with the Metal Mantis boss whatsoever is very nice. So the upcoming fight that I will fight is against Geshtar again, who is once again going to be riding Mech Rider. Once again, that fight will arbitrarily award a bunch of weapon experience to the boy. So I
Тут у нас тут опять драка. Драка с роботом, вторая, третья.
After this is the last time I'm going to put any effort into getting weapon experience onto him. After this, I should be in pretty much shape for the final boss. So this boss here is weirdly weak to magic. The previous version of this boss actually has more magic defense than this guy does. I don't know why that's how it is, but it is, and I'm not complaining. So I will... So I need to do 3 trashes, or is it 4?
Слишком легко. Слишком легко.
I'm planning ahead to the next segment. There's going to be a whole bunch of glitches coming up because I'm right about to get Flammy, which is my method for flying around the world.
После чего замок начинает рушиться, и нас подхватывает дракон.
Thanks in part to the ability to walk through walls in a variety of strange and glorious ways. So before we do that, though, we will have to collect a whole bunch of stuff so that we can actually handle the final boss. The final set of bosses. There is the final Mana Beast fight, of course. But before the Mana Beast fight, the first thing we will have to do in the Mana Fortress once we get there is defeat Buffy. Buffy is the master vampire, and for a bit of context, at the time that Ted Woolsey translated this game, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, was out, but the TV show did not exist yet.
Нужно будет уничтожить еще одного вампира, Баффи. Он сильнее, чем тот подмир, с которым мы дрались сейчас.
Most powerful spell that I can have the sprite cast on him would not inflict any damage. It would be completely shrugged off by his magic defense. So I need to get some way to defeat Buffy despite that. What am I going to do? I am going to head over to the Gold Tower, which is actually just to the right of where I am right now, but first I need to get the key, and there's a little bit of stuff I have to do.
Прежде чем мы пойдем, правда, в этот прекрасный замок, где мы получим следующего уровня магию и победим вампира, нам нужен ключ. Ключ, он как бы был, но как бы нет, потерялся. Мы знаем, где его искать, но нужно заставить игру его появиться. Ну и предложение. Заставить игру его... Заспавнить, конечно, это правильный ответ, но... А по-русски как?
By giving myself a humongous amount of experience. I'll let Yagamoth talk about that once we get there, but first, I need one more tool before I can do that. I'm revisiting Gaia's Navel here for one last time. The Dwarf Elder, ever since I defeated Jabberwocky, was just waiting for me to show up here so that he could hand me the Midge Mallet. In short, the Midge Mallet allows me to decide who lives and who dies. The Midge Mallet ostensibly is there to toggle whether someone is currently shrunk down to a pygmy or not. Any pygmy characters cast magic more quickly, but they have 75%
Окей, мы получаем молот.
defense power.
Я не заметил, мы его купили или нет. Опять проспал. В общем, молот позволяет нам кастовать магию на 75% быстрее. А нет, подожди, на 50, на 50. На 50 или на 25? А на 75% это то, что нам больше урона наносит, по-моему. В общем, мы сильно себя ослабляем.
Alrighty,
Девочку фидим,
so
что ли?
real quick, a wall is that green circle around enemies, and these knights in this area have the wall. What that allows you
Да,
to
фидим.
do
Мы добрались
is
до
to basically bounce back a
подземелья
certain
нужного
amount
нам.
of spells.
Нам нужно ее
And that is
сфидить.
very useful for us in this case, because
А,
if you
нет,
cast a
постой.
spell on an enemy, it bounces back to your own character, and that character gets killed through your own spells.
Мы
But the
немножко
fact you get
другое дело. Мы...
effectively,
Короче, здесь мы
the very amount of
прокачиваемся.
experience a
Здесь
character
мы
has
фидим
received
своего
over the
персонажа.
course of the entire
Но
game, modular
как они это
65,000
сделали,
and
это просто...
135. In short, it's a tremendous amount of experience. Crow is going to set up in a very precise way, because while you can target an enemy that is just barely on the side of the screen, a wall bounce back actually involves your character needing to be close enough for the bounce back of the wall spell to take effect. So he killed off the lady now, and that gave the sprite and the boy a pretty huge chunk of experience. Now he's going to kill off the boy a number of times right here via the Mitch mallet, and this will allow him to effectively just stack a ton of experience on both the sprite and the lady. You will see here the boy
Хитро,
get
короче, мы
knocked
себя
down,
убиваем.
and every time the
Всех
boy gets
остальных
knocked
персонажей
down, you
качаем.
can see the HP of the sprite and the lady
Жестко.
increase by huge jumps.
Главное не
This
промазать.
will give
Бывает,
Crow
случайно
a much
выбираешь
larger MP pool to work with.
того
And as
челика
mentioned
слева.
before, Lumina spells are going to be very
В
expensive.
арморе, так сказать.
And this is a very, very efficient and quick way to level the characters. Also, that was a very clean way of doing that.
Этот данж, конечно, предназначен покачаться. Но не таким способом, каким мы это сделали, однозначно.
Any one of which just ruins the whole thing, and you have to reset the whole setup. So I am pretty happy that that went as well as it did. We got also a high damage roll on the first attack against the boy. The first attack against the boy is not guaranteed to kill the boy.
Первый раз, когда мы убиваем парня, это может не получиться с первого раза. Так что нам повезло, мы сделали это с первого
Which is
раза.
still fine. It still works out in the end. I need to double check if I actually need to do one more trash. I've actually lost track. I do. Okay. If I trash too many things here, I actually wind up bringing myself into a state where I only have one royal jam left, I think it would be. And that
Нельзя много вещей выбросить здесь. Плохая идея.
Next up, I'm going to go mountain climbing. Nico, the merchant cat, is actually present here on this mountain.
Гора
And
Мяуту.
he describes
Мяуту Кинг.
mountain climbing in that way, of course. But rather than going up the mountain in the intended fashion, we're going to try to walk through walls and use whip posts, just generally speaking, not in the intended fashion. So I'm going to try to get the girl to just kind of wander around until eventually she's on one of the high ground areas. There we go. And now she'll gather the party using the whip post.
При помощи хлыста мы собираем наших спартийцев, просто нажав, как будто мы перемещаемся, и все становятся в одной точке. В общем, гличфест, пропускаем все, что можно. Отправляемся в данж. По-моему, здесь мы магию должны нафармить. Проскакиваем через текстуры. И вот, по-моему, здесь я ливнул, потому что здесь очень сильные противники. При том, что я люблю пофармить, здесь просто невыносимо сложные противники. Чтобы просто парочку убить, мне приходилось покупать хп, МП, бутылки. Слишком дорого оказалось. И сложно. В общем, освободим еще одного духа. По-моему, еще проверили, не помню уж.
We'll actually not be skipping the Moon Palace. We could, but Luna's magic is pretty awesome, so we'll go ahead and just do that. Coming up next is another case where I need to decide who lives and who dies using the Midge Mallet. The Midge Mallet will allow me to reduce my defense power, which is great.
И сложность этой комнаты в том, что мы сражаемся друг против друга, но и простота этой комнаты в том, что мы, ну, сами против себя. А простота в том, что если мы или наш персонаж умирает, то противник тоже умирает. Поэтому мы можем убить всех своих персонажей, потом воскресить одного и убить последнего. И они челлендж посчитается пройденным.
These guys won't be able to take you out. Their attack power is just not good enough, even though their attack animations look like they're doing level 8 charge attacks or whatever. Anyway, we have now cleared Jock's trial. This unlocks the Tree Palace, so I could go there and start going through the process to get into the Mana Fortress, but as I mentioned, I do want a little bit more setup so I can beat Buffy. The alternative, by the way, to getting magic in order to defeat Buffy in a practical manner is to derp around in the Buffy fight for like 20 minutes or so. That's what it seems to take most of the time. So
Прокачка через битву с Баффи 20 минут, что-то слишком плотно. Так, мы здесь с женщиной поговорили насчет какой-то там ерунды, не связанной с квестом, а теперь по квесту с ней разговариваем. И такая ситуация, что если мы с ней раньше не поговорили, то квест не сделать, который мы сейчас делаем. Достаточно жестко.
Here's hoping that we've run out of marathon RNG and we're going to start getting normal RNG instead. But it will take us a little bit to get to that boss, so it has been a while since I've passed things over to donation reading, so let's go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, you got it. Mulsi Bear donates $50, saying, "Greetings from the Lunarian Shuffle Discord. Good luck, Crow."
The Lunarian Shuffle, for anyone who does not know, is my randomizer for Final Fantasy IV. There's also a slightly more well-known randomizer for the game called Free Enterprise that's out there, which is also very good. But that is a open world randomizer, whereas Lunarian Shuffle is a full game randomizer.
Так, добираемся до босса. Тут у нас босс Раш.
Very, very thoroughly randomizing what it is that your party has access to as it goes
Тигр,
through
птица
the
будет и
original
еще
plot
что-то.
of the game. So,
Главное, чтобы он не запрыгал наверх.
yeah, he's a prominent member of that community, so glad to hear from him here. So now we're at Blue Spike. This is just like Spiky Tiger.
Опять тигр ведет себя так же, как он вел себя в первой битве. В принципе, зарядили оружие. Сейчас развалим его по-быстрому. Мы можем засофтлочиться. Если это тигр пытается нас схватить.
You get pulled above the usual camera bound box, which means that your AI characters are not allowed to form up on you as the boss fight.
Какой же сложный босс-файт.
And if you find yourself in that state, then the game just soft locks.
Мана и хронотриггер — это разные вещи. Хронотриггер — это как бы с системой АТБ РПГ с системой АТБ. Актив, бар, актив, тактик бар, что-то в этом роде. Короче, у тебя есть шкала, которая заполняется, и при помощи которой ты в итоге что-то делаешь. Здесь тоже есть шкала, но она не ограничивает тебя в том, чтобы ты кастовал бесконечное количество магии и тому подобное, как мы можем видеть. Поэтому, как бы, это две разных системы, что ли, это же не знаю, как называется. Бычара, которого мы пропустили.
destroyed a fairy walnut slot. Okay, I'm going to have to pick up more barrels later, which unfortunately is kind of a big detour. I made a mistake with the equipment trashing glitch, where one of the things that got hit up by the equipment trash was something that I had 3 of. So it saw that, and rather than passing on by,
По сюжету?
it instead
Кто его знает?
went
Что там сюжет,
ahead
что тут?
and, reduced
Обе игры
the
стоящие,
amount of
как
that item
минимум.
I had by 2, so that I
В
now
обе
have
играл.
1. So that happened instead of what I thought was happening, was me getting more.
Этот
barrels.
бык может постоянно
But this
защищаться,
boss
как можете
here
видеть,
spends
он
a
руки
lot of time
поднимает
just
вверх
guarding,
в
which is very
стойке,
annoying.
в боевой, как будто он типа защищается
I
от
am going
какого-то
to
жеба.
try to stand in a place, that's
Но
designed to avoid,
мы, конечно же, его пробьем,
letting
но желательно, чтобы он не
his power
защищался.
bomb attack if he does
Иначе,
it.
типа, бесполезная фигня.
And that's the name of a wrestling move, by the way. If he does that, he not only hurts the character that he flings while he does that, he also will simultaneously hurt everyone that's nearby and attempt to knock all people involved unconscious. So I don't want that to happen if I can avoid it. So, yeah.
On top of all the guarding that Gorgon Bull is doing, he also kind of like pretty much every boss at this point has that chance to just dodge the attacks, and even though Crow clearly connects with his weapon, it is just going to not hit because the game decides so. Because misses are unfortunately not particularly well
Сейчас победили.
communicated.
По-моему, последний был босс.
A little quirk to that fight is that if you have a long duration attack that comes out, one of the ones that involves the sword slashing for a long period of time, if you start slashing while he's blocking and then he drops his guard before your attack is done, unlike a lot of other defensive actions from enemies, in that case, you will actually score the hit once the guard is dropped. So that gives me a little bit more leeway on potentially connecting my attack, but whether RNG will agree with me is, of course, up to RNG to decide. I am going to pick me, the girl here. As I mentioned very briefly before, but haven't made any use of as of yet, Pygmead characters cast.
Не помню, что у нас тут за семя, но в общем это жесткая магия, русская.
So it is oftentimes worth the effort. So I have also sealed the seed. Doing so is quick, and it gives me the extra benefit of having more mana power, which will increase my damage output and also increase the maximum level I can get my magic up to. I will never have a spell higher than level 5 though, so any further it doesn't help on that front, but I still get the extra bonus damage on my high damage rolls, so that is worth it. Specifically, the high damage roll buff that you get is the square of the number of seeds you sealed. So at this point, I have 25 bonus damage off of that. Pretty soon I will have 36 because I am right about to do the Moon Palace. The Moon Palace is a very short dungeon. I strongly suspect that this was supposed to be much longer originally. I also think the Wind Palace.
Вкратце пересказ. Я проспал кучу времени и рекомендую начать сначала смотреть.
The history of this game is that it originally was going to be like Squaresoft's flagship demonstration of just how awesome it is to have a CD for your storage on your. I can actually salvage that. Anyway, CD for your storage on your SNES game, thanks to the new peripheral that was being designed by Sony, which was being called the Nintendo PlayStation. Corporate drama ensued, and overall, I would say PlayStation. Sony came out pretty well for what wound up happening afterward. But suffice it to say that this game wound up having to have portions of it like divided up, like portions of the plans that they had got divided up into like Chrono Trigger and some other projects too. You can see some similarity in the design of Chrono and the design of Marl. and the design of two of the characters we're looking at here. So at this point we're just sealing.
Так, это, по-моему, последнее семя, которое мы собираем.
So this is probably another good time for some donations.
Yeah, I definitely have some for you. I've got one from Zap Rousdower that says, "Hey Crow." It says, "Hey Crow, it's Cam and Jeremy and Mike from your work. Hope that this donation gets read. Just want to say we appreciate the walkthrough. We think you're a step above the rest. You're definitely kicking it up a notch. Keep the final boss on its toes and keep on destroying this game. Let's go, Crow!"
Все силы подбадривают Кро донатами.
Under $500 away from $100,000 raised in the first day. So let's get it up and get it in. We've got $25 from Anonymous saying 100K first day, get in. That's what we're trying to do, my friends. And I've got $25 from Aaron Scott. Says, "Loving the Secret of Mana block. Excellent commentary and gameplay for an excellent cause. Cheers to everyone involved. Thank you all." Thank you, Aaron, and thank you for everyone staying up with us during this amazing run for this amazing cause.
All right. So, at this point, the game is going to get very weird.
В тот момент игра совсем сломается. Нам как бы нужно было спасти Рождество, но тут все не так просто. Мы оставили это подземелье, чтобы это подземелье имело эффект подземелья. Подземелье, если оно пройдено, оно эффект подземелья не имеет. Вот это подземелье не пройдено, на нем есть эффект подземелья.
But I instead chose to take Flammy out. That means that shield was never removed. At this point, I can achieve a watermelon ending to my game, and if I game over to this watermelon right here, I can pretend I'm playing Ico, and leave Sheiks, who you see here, he's about to turn into Egobropolon, who we call Watermelon for obvious reasons. He will still be in that room. This will enable us to do some serious shenanigans in a little bit. And
противный босс, который просто прыгает на голову и овнит. И нам нужно погибнуть быстренько.
Now we're all dead. Okay, it took a little bit longer than usual, but eventually we get kicked out and Santa says, "Scram!" And now we are ready to move on to more shenanigans. So I am very low on cups of wishes. I am also at a bad number of walnuts that I can fix as I do shopping at a somewhat infamous location. So to the left here is the Frosty Forest Nico, where if you land here on this island, you will meet Nico, and if you save here, the game won't know where the save file is. The reason for this is that the game tries to save where it was you entered a room whenever you make a save file, but we didn't enter this room in a normal fashion. We instead landed here via Flammy. So if I make a save and then do LR select start in order to restart, I can just, start a new game because, that run had too many problems. So let's just do the whole thing over.
Да, я предлагаю вам начать этот ран еще раз. Reset таймер. Save quit. Я пошутил. На самом деле мы загружаем эту локацию так, что как будто мы здесь были. Титры считаются тоже за локацией, как будто мы здесь были. Поэтому мы сейчас закопаемся в машине. И все.
Same is true even of this scene right here. But my target is the waterfall room with the log from this initial cutscene right after the music changes. At that point, I'll be able to enter a room that, for whatever reason, if you enter there at a unusual time, not during the opening cutscene, the game will, as an emergency, I don't know why this code is in the game, but it is, and we'll make use of it. It will put everyone into cutscene mode, which is what we call it, where they become invisible. And then it boots them over to Potos Village, where we can escape from. So now the girl and the sprite immediately did their healing animation from being a ghost, because I had just cured them just before. So they are visible, but the boy is not. Any invisible character in this game has a lot of weird properties, and I'm going to let Yagama take over here because it gets both weird and also technical at this point. So
Так, дальше тут супер технически сложные трюки. Опять смерти и пролезание через текстуры. У нас невидимый пацан. Мы его убили. Вот, он невидимый. Мы располагаем невидимого пацана таким образом, чтобы в тот момент, когда мы переключаемся на пацана или на фею, наша девочка проскакивала над текстурой, которая нам нужна. Если мы вовремя ее останавливаем, она на этой текстуре останавливается. Объяснено легко, но делается супер сложно.
Incredibly apparent that one controller has a clear disadvantage compared to multiples. Nice. Probe already managed to fiddle his way through to the staircase there, and now he has to make his way further backwards into this previous next area, so to speak. And he will try to use this Grey Wolf there, the Howler, in order to try and...
Так, нам нужно сейчас, чтобы нас ударило, насколько я помню. Или нас волк затолкает, я не помню. В общем, надо забраться на верхний правый этаж, но это нелегко.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Окей, ну пока получается все очень даже неплохо.
Oh, I see.
I'm gonna cut in real quick and say we just passed $100,000.
100 тысяч перескочили.
Congratulations, everybody! Thank you so much for all the generosity.
Нет, покчам, по-моему, потому что я спать хочу нереально просто.
Amazing. Alrighty.
Сейчас скоро закончится, пойду спать.
Okay, Crow is going to try and do this again. So basically, he is giving the lady there a fairy walnut to make her stand in place, and then he has her cast the spell just so she stands in place and doesn't move until he positions the invisible boy in a way where he can interact with the guy up there.
Блин, походу не получилось у него, да?
When you turn to the left with an invisible character, press B, you can interact with any entity on the screen, like that NPC that is not supposed to be there, and start an event as if you were talking to them. During these events, with an invisible character in your party, you can walk through walls effectively, and that allows you to, well, hopefully eventually get backward through this grand palace. However, these wolves are not exactly cooperating. They need to be in a relatively precise position, and they keep actually targeting the boy, who might actually die soon at this rate, because he has taken quite a bit of damage already.
Okay, I have the setup I need, I think.
О, он смог забраться, лол. Как же это было сложно. Он сделал это с миллионного раза. Теперь нам нужно здесь тоже проскочить. Ну, чтоб девочка застряла. Снова.
Its behavior is random, so I don't get to fully control over whether it does that or not. And at this point, I need it to not cast Blaze Wall for a little bit while I get the girl down here. I think she's in, she is not. Okay, just a little bit more. There we go. I need to press this button 2 times. And because I press this button 2 times without pressing the above button, that means that now Sheeks is still up here instead of the Snapdragon that's supposed to be the mini boss in this section here. And ultimately, I will still be able to go to Hexus, which is the next boss after this. And in the end, doing all this skips having to do the Grand Palace, the subway section, or the Sunken Continent dungeons. So effectively, I've skipped 3 dungeons.
Пропускаем 3
подземелья.
подземелья. В итоге этими вот манипуляциями, шинаниганами, шинаниганс.
The Palace of Darkness all the way. I just entered there long enough to do the wall glitch and then I left. So
Так и
at
тут
this point I'm going to deal with
Танатус нас опередил.
who is a boss that things can go wrong with, so I'm going to go ahead and let
По-моему, у нас тут повторная
her. And I know he
учимость,
kind of
да?
likes
А
this
нет,
boss
это
too, so,
змея.
Sure. Alrighty. Hexus has a good chunk
Достаточно
of magic
опасная.
resistance, so usually the quicker way, but not necessarily safer, is to try and defeat her via using, well, physical attacks. In this case, Crow is going to probably be in a little bit of trouble because I just realized, and you probably did too, that you don't have any barrels. So that's going to be interesting.
I'm not exactly sure how this is going
А,
to
у
work
него
out,
нет
but I'll
бутылок
make it
на
work.
хил.
Worst case
ГГ.
scenario, I could actually
Нафигит,
spam freeze.
скорее
That
всего.
will work.
Хотя он не какой-то там
It takes a while,
рядовой.
but,
Лишь что сделать правильно.
I may also
Ему
be
нужно
able to get away
5 или
with
6 атак, по-моему,
just
сделать
using an extensive amount
в
of,
заряде
lucid
хорошем.
barrier, which I want to train up anyway, so
Попасть
it's
еще
not
надо.
a huge disaster on that front. And
Но
I'm going to
главное,
try to
девочку
use
держать
some
достаточно
base
близко,
CS
чтобы на
kind of
нее
things where she's
косты
invincible
сваливались.
for no good reason.
Yeah. Alrighty. So basically, Hexus has a number of things she can do. One of the things you don't want her to do in a speedrun like this is change form. If you stand relative to her far to the top left, straight top, or top right, she will actually transform into her water, earth, or fire forms, where she will just cast the corresponding spells. Crow actually wants her to keep her in her basic form, which largely casts only this spell, as well as physical attack spells, abilities, whatever you want to call them, and these can be denied via the use of Lucid Barrier. Sometimes Hexus can completely bug out and you can no longer hit her with melee physical attacks, which is very weird, and we kind of have to throw a
Как же
spell at
сложно
her
ее драка.
before she, well, is vulnerable again to these. We don't really know why
Поскольку
that happens or
уклонение
how
как
exactly
бы
happens, it just
бот сам
doesn't,
считает, уклонился или
yeah,
нет.
it's hard to
Этот
give a
процент нигде не
definitive
нарисован для
estimate.
тебя.
On top of that,
Просто в очень
there's
печальной
sometimes
ситуации
instance
оказываешься.
where enemies
В
or
итоге,
bosses just cast spells, and while they're casting spells, they are completely invulnerable as well.
особенно
So
когда
that
противник
means on
кастует
top
спелл,
of the already like 30%
какую-то
chance to
магию
get to
колдует, то
non-physical
он
attacks,
неуязвим тоже.
they will also have an additional chance to just completely avoid your attacks because they are immune while spellcasting, and then on top of that, you might just get unlucky and the AI control characters decide to whiff their attacks completely. It's basically quite a bit of a mess. But yeah, but Hexus is currently hittable, and the lady is a little bit of a pickle. So worst case
Чё
scenario,
там?
at
И
this
получается,
point,
девочка
Crow
умерла.
also
Стой.
does have the ability to save warp back into this room. This would be a valid solution for this, although it is not a terribly efficient one, unfortunately. But, well, let's see and hope that this is going to work out in Crow's favor here.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a shopping trip after this to substitute for the shopping trip I was supposed to do before this, given the mistake I made earlier that left me without as many barrels as I needed. And unfortunately, the boy has at this point
Драка продлилась миллион лет.
too far
Уже сложно.
downward and is unlikely to score any hits because it's the thin part of the tail that does all the damage from Hexus. So yeah. Okay, we'll try one more overcharge off of the sprite. If this does not wind up working out, I am next going to... Okay, I did land that hit. I'm going to go right ahead now and have the sprite just magic his way to victory here. This is a very old strategy. Once upon a time, I actually did this. I won't do good damage with freeze until it's level 5, and unfortunately it's going to take a while to get there. But this will at least bail us out of this particular disaster.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
unfortunately, I forgot to remind you about the barrels because I forgot that you need one for hexes. So normally he would want to have one barrel to just tank hexes and have the lady stay in front while both the sprite and the boy get free reign on attacking her, because the barrel in hexes basic form is literally going to deny all damage. But yeah, it's just gonna be free spam here. For anybody who may not know how the free spam even works, basically you control a character that is not the sprite in this case, which allows you to use your partners menu with the X button to, well, cast the spells quicker than you would normally are supposed to. And this allows you to just chain spells together again and again and again. All the damage adds up to a maximum of 999
Закидаем,
damage.
короче,
Any
магией.
damage
В
above
принципе, как он сделал
999
и
is
в первом
actually
ране.
lost, so you want to stop
Easy
casting at some
получается.
point in order to let the damage display before you continue as well. I feel like that's probably worth mentioning too.
Oh, that was going to be enough.
Yeah, I think he only hit 2. That means he has like 300, 400 HP left, I think. Also, one of the overcharges was unfortunately a low damage roll, so that didn't help. It might actually be a bit more left over. On the bright side, if you somehow can't cast Lumina, Freeze is going to be leveled up now.
Let's hope it doesn't come to that. In any case, Hexus is down. Crisis averted. We can continue the run. Sorry about that one, guys. That is how a chain reaction can happen in this run, where one mistake leads to another, and in any case, at this point, I should be able to continue.
Yeah,
I
think that was a
will
solid
have to buy
recovery.
some more stuff later to make up for the somewhat shortage of resources I have now, but it'll be okay. So for this next boss, this boss's AI has a whole lot of shortcomings. He is going to try to get onto the same horizontal plane as the rest of us, and then charge horizontally. However, because he is floating, but we are not, if we just take up shop at the bottom of the screen here, he will never succeed in getting on the same horizontal plane as us. And this will allow us then to just do whatever we want, basically. And he won't be able to hit us with his physical attack. One thing he will be able to attempt to hit us with, though,
Повторно деремся с машинкой. Опять же защищаем ее просто магией. Изи, изи. Билтоп.
Which he won't get because before trying to speed himself up, he first uses the wall spell, which reflects the speed up spell that he tries to enchant himself with. So yeah, this boss's AI fails on many levels. Unfortunately, though, he does have a humongous HP pool, so taking him out will still take a fairly long period of time. Thus far, this RNG is making up for some of the time we lost to Hexus just a little bit ago. So that feels good. We are going to, at this point, need to get the characters on the opposite side. The AIs are much worse at doing the proper charge attack, and will instead kind of freak out and attack early if Mech Rider is moving towards them rather than away. So each time Mech Rider reaches the edge of the screen, I go ahead and form up the rest of the party on the far side. There's a few ways I can do it depending on the current position of everyone. I'll choose either a spell or I'll dash into the wall in order to bring everyone over. But one way or the other, I eventually deal enough overcharge hits that Geshard gets taken out. It has been a long time since I've explained the overcharge, so quick TLDR version. I get the game confused as to whether I'm on charge level 2 or charge level 1. And in the end, it thinks I'm at a current charge level that is higher than the maximum it's trying to go to. When the current is bigger than the maximum, the coding breaks. Gives me another charge level every few frames. So that allows me to do redonkulously large amounts of damage compared to the normal maximum, which is charge level 8.
Нет, я буду спать.
Level 40, 60, something like that. So coming up next, before I go to the Mana Fortress, I'm first going to make a detour to Nico, and I'm going to buy some stuff so I'm not in quite so much danger. So
You could just land on the Sunken Fortress.
That Nico does not actually sell. I don't think it sells Royal Jams. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it definitely does not sell.
Да, это все, это эндгейм. Мы не проходим все данжи. Мы должны были уже выбить всю магию. Тем данжем, в котором мы побывали, заглючили там всю фигню, прошли босса, ура. Я заснул на бусе, я так и не понял, что он с ним сделал. Он вроде бы закидал его магией. Вот, ему понадобится еще одна магия, и он может идти последний босс. Но он, скорее всего, ровно в стимейт зайдет. По той причине, что ему не везет с боссами, это раз, очень много времени занимает файты. И второе, мы ему задонатили там на эту фигню. Будет ногами проходить последнего босса. Русский. Ногами. А потом я буду проходить 100% подушка.
You got it. We've got a bunch of hype coming in from hitting 100K. Dryad43 gives $25 saying 100K hype. Anonymous gives $25 saying 100K first day. Also worth it to get Ori and Will of the Wisps as a bonus game. Thank you so much for those donations and all the other ones that are coming in.
One more?
Sure, we got Dude Cheetos, who gave $500 and said, "This should get us over 100K. Been watching since I couldn't donate, so glad I can pay back years of just watching."
All right. So next up, I need to get into the Mana Fortress. You're supposed to do the Pure Lands first. Pure Lands has a lot of important plot stuff going on, including the Mana Tree, which is there, which there's some importance of the Mana Tree relative to the boy, relative to Gammon, but we're not going to see any of that. So instead, we are going to once again abuse the power of Whip Post. So first, I'm going to do a glitch called Weapon Grafting. What I'm going to do here is I have the boy equip the boomerang. And I want to use the boomerang's charge.
Тоже какая-то жесткая тема, типа заряжает бумеранг и потом заменяет бумеранг на меч. В итоге бросает бумеранг, а на самом деле урон меча это же просто что? Просто что?
Equip the boomerang, get numbers of any sort to show up on the boy. While those numbers are showing up, you have another character tell that character to equip a different weapon. And now I actually have the sword equipped, even though it looks like the boomerang. This means I can do the boomerang's attack animation, which happens to be the level 2 charge attack animation, happens to be the only attack which has the correct timing and the correct distance that I can hit that whip post after I have summoned Flammy. And because I've done that, That means that now whenever I land here, I have stacked that event on top of what was supposed to happen here, where the game was supposed to check whether we had done the Pure Lands or not, and because we haven't, it's supposed to have a barrier around this place. But instead, that's not going to
Так,
happen,
наконец-то
and
попали
I'm
на
not
последний
in my
остров.
dungeon, if the game will let me. Come on, girl. There we go.
Да,
Now
он, думаю,
we're
уже
in the
за
dungeon.
сегодня-завтра может либо выровняться,
So, a
либо
lot of the enemies
будет
here
ехать до
are
нескольких
specific
часов,
to
после
this
чего
dungeon.
выдержит один ран.
Those enemies
Но не думаю,
that
что там
are
они
very
дадут
scary,
этому
and I am going to
продолжаться
respect them.
слишком
For
долго.
example, these tsunamis here are terrifying, and I am going to go ahead and paralyze them with a spell that you would not normally see in this run.
Противники заспамили проход.
I chose that spell just because it has a long animation. Unfortunately, it wound up taking a while anyway.
И не
The
пройти.
preference is if those tsunamis don't spawn, but unfortunately, because the motion of enemies is random, that also means that the list of enemies that spawn as other enemies despawn in time to make room for new ones winds up being random also. So, unfortunately, I got tsunamis there, and I got through.
Мы
safely,
попадаем на
so
этот
that's
остров
good.
необычным образом.
But yeah, if you let those guys rev up and start actually casting spells, they don't stop casting spells until multiple party members are dead. At this point, I don't quite have the
Сложно сказать, правда, каким,
amount
но
of
необычным.
armor that I quote-unquote should for this section of the game. I'm supposed to have gone to a different Nico than the one that I visited in order to pick up some really awesome but also really expensive armor there. I didn't, but I do at least have the Gold City armor, which is enough that I should survive one hit from even the strongest enemies here. Only one, though. Without dying, I mean. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and Pygmead the girl. Once again, Pygmead characters cast magic faster than non-Pygmead ones do, and this will allow me to blast this boss with magic.
Так, окей, у нас сейчас будет
Because
два
the maximum
босса.
MP meets or exceeds 32 MP, that means I'll be
Еще
able
один
to
вампир.
do 4 casts per set. Not for this first set, though, because I was starting a little bit short. But we will be good to go at this point. And just blasting Buffy with magic and then eventually using the equipment trashing glitch, which I will do now after checking that I'm in a good shape to do so. I am. This is going to go on like this for a little while, so we probably have time for a donation or two.
Absolutely. Mark in Austin donates $33.60. Says Secret of Mana, the glitch that keeps on glitching. Way to go, Crow. Good luck demonstrating the elusive 1-player 2 feet category. We've also got Tomothy Cruz with $25. Says,
Будет
cheers
смешно,
to
как
Crow.
он
Thank you,
подвинет
Okishop, for
вебку
showing
на
me
то, как он
GDQ.
ногами играет. Просто рофл.
Mark in Austin there happens to be my brother, so thanks very much for that. And yes, I in fact call this game the glitch that keeps on glitching. The joke in this is that any attempt to play this game in a glitchless category winds up becoming a discovery opportunity for more glitches because we keep encountering new stuff. The weapon graft there, for example, was found. I was there at the time. It was found by Yagamoth.
Нормально. Ну, он девочку превратили в маленькую, спел кастуется быстрее и изи. Заспамили.
Anyway,
It's fascinating.
yeah, we've gotten past Buffy here. Since we had the preparation we needed, he wasn't so bad. If I had gone in here without Lumina, that would have been about a 20-minute fight because he just does not cooperate for the overcharge glitch at all.
Yeah, imagine how it was. Sorry, imagine how it was for how
Так
you
хорошо,
had
от
to deal with
этого
Exos
босса
just from
до
multiverse.
следующего
Imagine if
суперопасная
Hexus
дорога.
jumped around while also doing all those brutal attacks. And if I couldn't fall back on magic, because that would be the core problem. Freeze at my current amount of mana power, Freeze literally cannot deal damage to Hexes, and that's the big issue. Not Hexes.
Главное, чтобы персонажи наши не застревали, потому
So
что
we're now about to get into
сложно будет их
a boss
вытаскивать.
fight that we will use overcharge against, not because it's easy, but because we have to. And we can.
И мы добегаем до босса, который тупо слизень. Нам нужно расположиться в кадрах таким образом, чтобы до каждого персонажа было одинаковое расстояние. Потому что босс так устроен, что он двигается до какого-то персонажа, который ближе к нему. Вот, а если все на одинаковом расстоянии, то это типа заставляем персонажей стоять на месте благодаря использованию предметов. Этот босс очень неприятен, потому что он дамажит своим хитбоксом. Еще кастует всякую дрянь.
On top of that, in order to use overcharge attacks, you have to have your AI control cactus engaged in combat, which means they cannot be too far away from the center, but also simultaneously, you need to be close enough to start charging their attack, but also, well, far enough away so they will not immediately unleash their attack without like waiting first. And getting this set up like properly is very tricky because Dreadslime just keeps casting spells. Your AI really does not want to cooperate on where they get positioned, so this might just take a little bit to set up here.
Okay, I think I've gotten myself covered now.
Да, он почти закончил. Потому что он заманипулировал, чтобы он двигался в правильном направлении, но персонажи плохо. Они должны быть вот между этих столбов как раз идеально стоять. Пока не так легко, не очень получается.
We also, well, Crow actually skipped getting Dryad spells, which would allow him to bounce back spells.
Не получилось.
Acid Rain in this case. So it would
Все получилось. Видите, он застрял и не знает, куда двигаться.
So she just bounces back the Acid Rain in case she gets targeted. But he kind of has to work with the tools he currently has.
Эта слизень с получением урона становится все больше и больше и больше и больше и больше. Пока не взорвется.
Which means I'll have to use just the boy. This is safe now because the previous time that the sprite was not
По-хорошему, надо было, конечно, бы, чтобы два персонажа атаковало. Но
in the position that the sprite was, he was going to drag the dread slime into a position that potentially the boy might no longer have been aggroed himself, and then I have no further way to deal damage. No spell. Because this guy is weak against Shade and has absurdly high magic defense, and I never picked up Shade. No spell I have will inflict any damage on him. I must overcharge or nothing. There is no substitute. So, at this point, the boy will be able to take this on. It's going to take a little while. I will try to maximize the effectiveness of the boy by using moon energy, which will also give me a little bit of progress towards defeating the final boss.
Используем сверху лунную энергию, чтобы меч посильнее бил.
Because moon energy gives you free critical hits. It's 1 plus the current level of the spell is the number of free critical hits you get. There's no duration on the spell. It just lasts however long it lasts. So, Sprite, I think that's in time. And 1 or 2 more hits will take out Dread Slime. Unlike Lime Slime, who we were supposed to fight before but didn't, Dread Slime actually gets larger with each hit, and anytime a character is at all in Dread Slime's goo, that character cannot move towards the middle. So that's a big part of why it's hard to get everyone into the position you need them to be in. You can move away, but you can't move towards. So we made it eventually.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid.
Ну, слизи
backup.
порвали.
That was decently fast.
Дальше Танатос.
All right, so we're now in the final dungeon section of.
По-моему, если я правильно помню, Танатос, потом
All
последний
of
босс.
the hardest enemies in the game, or at least the strongest ones anyway, happen to be here.
Самый последний данж с самыми противными уродами, которые только есть. Ой, застрял. Фея застрял.
You know what? Let's pretend this is the previous game from the marathon.
Okay.
Let's do some
Сейф, страты.
Metal Gear Mana, because I did wind up spawning that fiend head. I thought I gave the girl a... Oh, right, she was poisoned. Poison actually prevents a character from becoming barreled, weirdly enough. Anyway, as long as your character is in a barrel, the enemies ignore their presence. It also, you know, makes you invulnerable to physical attacks, as we've been using them for before. But the fact that enemies ignore barreled characters is kind of amusing. Oh, girl, get over here. Okay. Unfortunately,
Бочковая
does
пати.
not make the AI any smarter.
Nope, the enemies just ignore you because that's what they do. They can't see barrels. Barrels are... they're not there.
Unfortunately, this does not apply, or fortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Bosses are immune to the stealth part of barrels. They will acknowledge that your characters are, in fact, characters. Since magic will get past barrels, that does mean that against bosses that cast magic, barrels won't make you invincible. But this bridge here is actually the main reason I wanted to keep the barrels on for so long rather than taking them off earlier. That
Смертельный
fiend head
мост.
there is basically impossible to despawn.
Пиратов.
And so long as it's on the bridge, running past is not really
Надеемся
safe,
проскочить между
unless
всеми
you're
так
at full HP,
быстро, насколько это
which at
возможно.
that point I wasn't going to be. So anyway, we have now made it to the
Всё, мы
second
справились.
to final boss. So I'll need to wait for the MP, and now it's soon going to be time for Thanatos. But first, there's a cutscene, which is a great time for donations.
All right, you got it. We've got a donation from Supa Shadow Nova for $25. It says, "My dad loves Secret of Mana. This is for him." Thank you so much for that. We've got Blue Cheetah with $500. It says something
Немножко
must
сюжета.
be afoot if we only need to defeat the final boss. Those puns making a comeback.
В итоге Танатос
And we've got
пожирает
Angry
парня,
Toast with
забирает
$200.
его тело.
Says Secret of Mana was one of my favorite games from the
Но
SNES
он
era. I spent countless
сопротивляется.
hours in the Mana Fortress and cutting through those green crystals hunting for those
И не
last
дает
weapon
собой
ores.
управлять.
It blows my mind to
его
see how
придется
fast this is being done. Cheers on the run.
Такой отличный мешок.
Thank you so much for your donations. Keep them on coming in.
Okay, so we are about to start the fight. The fight will look a lot like the Buffy fight because I'm going to be using Lucent Beam. which
Будем бахать
happens to be the weakness
самой
that
мощной
I
магией,
have
которая
because
есть.
I've leveled it up, so may as well keep going. Also, leveling up Lumina
И не париться.
to level 5
Потому что если можно забузить магию, то чё
Lightsaber
париться?
spell, to be that
Главное,
much more powerful,
кормить ее
for
орехами.
the boss coming up after this, which will be a nice little extra bonus on that.
И да, тут дополнительный саундтрек играет, который нигде больше не играет.
Honestly, you can go ahead and do a few more donations at this point.
No problem. I've got them. Dr. Calexo with $15 says, "I've played Secret of Mana countless times with my cousin and will be doing it again as soon as quarantine is finally over. Always love to see it broken in half by speedruns." Anonymous gives $30 saying, "Secret of Mana was one of my favorite games growing up, and Crow does some of the best speedrun commentary I've heard. Good luck on the run."
Thank you.
And Quasar29 says, "From the soft yet electric color scheme to the world-class soundtrack, Square was putting in their games in the 90s. Secret of Mana remains one of the all-time greats. Thanks and keep up the awesome runs. And Anonymous gives $50. Says, first donation this week, definitely not the last. Secret of Mana was the clear choice for the day one game I wanted to donate during. Looking forward to an amazing week. And we're looking forward to all of you anonymous and not anonymous ones hanging out with us all week long. Pyro gives $100. Says, here's to defeating the final boss in this great Secret of Mana run and all the doggos in the world. A big thanks to all the staff and runners for this amazing event in these tough times. Let's keep those dog nations going. Game Watcher donates $10, saying, I have fond memories of spending hours watching my brother play Banjo-Kazooie. I still love that game and enjoy watching speedruns of it. That's why I'm hoping to win the Banjo-Kazooie plush. And I just want to use that to remind you all your donations go to winning prizes. Who doesn't want to win prizes?
Все
So
ваши
make sure you're getting
донаты
those donations in.
позволят вам
And
выиграть
Sent, I'm sure will be in here
что-нибудь.
soon to show you what those
Есть
prizes are.
шанс.
Okay, it's time for me to transition
Донатьте.
the webcam to pointing to the controller I'm going to be using for the final boss. So take it away, Yagamoth.
Alrighty, for the final boss coming up, there's going to be a few things to note. One, in case you may have only recently tuned in,
Вы что, он
did defeat a
вебку
lot of enemies
с ноутбука
in
использует?
previous sections with certain like weapons in order to level up the secondary weapons. There's a hidden mechanic a lot of people just don't know about, since where the mana sword is going to be more powerful, the higher level your secondary
Сейчас
weapons
будет
level
контентыч,
is.
guys.
And it just so happens that he leveled up his partial weapons to the point where the boy will actually get a ridiculously high attack power boost
Не мой
with
телефон.
just regular sword swings. In other categories, you see still using overcharge in order to break through the mana beast.
Он запихивает нас
Physical
под
defense.
кровать.
However, Crow is going to be able to just swing away, and if everything goes right, he will be able
Один
to
в
also
носке, другой
just
нет.
knock down the mana beast in one cycle. Although that is rather
Жестко.
difficult to do, and especially with his feet, as you can see now. So Crow is now using an SNES Advantage controller,
Ладно, я замучусь.
which is kind of like an arcade stick thingy, and this swing will allow him to just play with his feet more efficiently.
Наслаждайтесь пальцами.
Still need to go through the cutscenes and such, but I think he's about to be ready. So the first thing to note, Crow is going to activate the Mana Sword while transitioning to the next screen. So let me back off a little bit. So normally the way you unlock the Mana Sword is by giving the boy the mana the sword and casting both Triad spells on the boy. Now, Triad is actually the spell element that we did not pick up because we skipped it, but conveniently enough, because it unlocks the mana spells after you defeat Thanatos or the Dark Lich just now, you actually do acquire all the spells from the thing here. So Crow is about to cast a bunch of spells onto the boy, which allows him to just unlock the Mana Sword, but while unlocking the Mana Sword, he, well, tried to go into the next screen in order to completely avoid this, like, 20-second cutscene here. However, it requires movement precise enough, but sometimes that's a bit tricky, I would suppose, with feet. Which,
Что, зачем? Задонатили 8К бачей.
Getting the
Тесла, иди выспись.
select button pressed because unfortunately select button is like way over compared to the controller. So I succeeded in trying to get the sprite to move left, but then oops.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Alrighty. Okay, so he also just unlocked the Mana Sword twice in a row because during the first cutscene, infamously, you actually just usually lose the...
Ну так работай, не
charge.
отвлекайся.
That's part of the reason why you kind of want to skip that too. So you just have to unlock the Mana Sword twice in a row if you have never leveled up Triad spells, since one of the spells from either the Sprite or the Lady, if it goes like a low damage roll or, well, a low luck roll, whatever you want to call it, effectively the spell is not going to last long enough, so it would last through the cutscene. So, however, Crow also casted a elemental spells, in this case Lumina Saber on this sword, which actually makes this mana sword infinite. And as long as Crow does not run out of attack charges with the Lumina spell, he will actually keep the mana sword and its corresponding like power boosting ability. He will continuously try to keep Lunar Boost as well as Lunar Energy up on the boy in order to power him up. Lunar Boost gives the boy 25% more attack power, so that is going to contribute to him dealing effectively maximum damage per swing. On top of that, Lunar Energy is going to allow the boy to deal critical damage. Critical damage is effectively twice damage, on top of also bypassing enemy armor. The Mana Beast has 450 defense, which means that it will actually usually deal, well, be strong enough in order to completely negate any regular attacks. However, the Mana Sword being powered up as it is right now, he will be
Вкратце, короче, этого босса можно убить только мана-мечом. Мана-меч нужно заряжать определенной магией, которую мы не подняли. Но мы его быстро все равно убьем.
The way he prevented the damage from the fireball was actually just casting the Lucid Barrier at the appropriate timing, which is very important to note here, because it was the spell animation that prevented the boost from occurring. However,
Я стал 2.40, ну, видимо, 2.48.
What's the word? The animation basically prevented the damage from occurring because he was in the middle of animation and it just cancelled out the damage from the whirl. But the Lunar Barrier then subsequently provided a defense against the next area. Also, Acid Rain reduces the enemy's defense by 20% additionally on top of that. So if everything went well and the section or setup earlier went well sufficiently to Crow's desire, he should be able to effectively deal max damage here with regular swings. Whenever the Mana Beast casts Lucent Beam, it is going to be briefly invulnerable, so he will not be able to cast or dish out any more damage throughout the event here. So yeah, not entirely sure how much magic power you ended up getting through your secondary weapons, but that's a bit less damage than we would hope for, I think.
I believe that the mana magic buff is not currently active. I can try to reset it later, but I have to do it in between cycles. Suffice it to say, one cycle is definitely dead, so I will have to deal with what I've got.
Yeah, I do think that there's definitely something missing there. Worth noting that the Mana Sword is actually just a regular sword, however, more or less the final upgrade, if you will. Normally, you cannot upgrade the sword to level 9 or 8. Either way, there's one less sword forge you can normally do, and that sword normally gets unlocked by...
Жалуются спидранеры, что маленькие цифры выпали на уроне, поэтому в один цикл не удалось бахнуть.
It might actually be because you transitioned before Lumina took hold there. That is a possibility.
Yeah. The first thing that made me a little worried something was not right was that I didn't actually have the correct color scheme on the sword. Usually, if that happens, whatever caused that to happen will also remove the mana map. In any case, we should be in good shape now. I should be doing 999 strikes with this cycle, or actually a little bit less because I won't have acid anymore. That should have been off by now. But apart from that, we should be in good shape. Yeah, it's a lot better.
Round 2. Right.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, this is the power of the mana boost. So there's methods of glitching the mana sword into you or onto your character early that I'm sure a lot of you people have tried out before yourself. There's that kind of frost for a sneaker way that you can get that early. And this is the power of the unlocked mana sword you can see by having secondary weapons leveled up as well. This is the difference, so to speak. Previously he was doing just about 200 and those additional attack power boosts, even though he did have the mana sword previously as well, He's just kind of going to add a lot of damage on top of that. So that definitely helps a lot. So and as long as he doesn't get, well... I think it might have run out actually again.
Yeah,
that's
I
interesting.
think I actually ran out of lightsaber charges. So yeah.
No, I think the
Oh, I know.
lightsaber
I
was
brought
actually
up
selected.
the. Yeah, I know what I did. I brought up the weapon menu, caused the game to think about what the boy's
Oh,
supposed
that's
to have.
right.
That's
a
a
thing.
bit of an annoying stipulation on the glitch. One thing that makes this game interesting as a speedrun, although difficult, is the fact that in this game, a lot of the glitches have a lot of limitations associated with them. In this case, the infinite mana sword glitch that I used in order to have the mana
Нет,
sword
это
last
зверь
as
маны,
long
мана
as,
бист называется.
the
Технически это какой-то дракон, но не наш
lightsaber
дракон.
buff lasts. That
Наш кавайный этот.
unfortunately has a
урод.
stipulation that anytime the game checks how much strength or other stats the boy should have, that check will also remove the mana magic buff. So we'll have to go once more onto the breach here. And this third cycle, I think this one's going to be the charm here. I think third time's the charm on this
Надеется
one.
спидранер,
And
что
we
это последний
will,
цикл.
at this
Я
point,
тоже на
be
это
able
очень
to
надеюсь.
finally
Что я
defeat
хочу
this
спать.
boss properly. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go.
A lot of
Full
things to
damage
keep in
again.
mind.
Нет, 0. Чел. Вот.
Yeah, that's pretty good damage, to say the least. So the Mana Beast has 9,990 HP, so in order to defeat it, that's how much damage you have to deal, which is, I think, almost twice as much as the previous boss, and that's, to say the least, a lot of damage you have to dish out over the course of the combat here. And wow, how is the sprite not closer to the boss than the
Победа.
enemy?
I'm not
That's
sure,
impressive.
but sometimes you just have to deal with what the game gets you. But there we are. Finally goes down. We have defeated the Mana Beast.
Вот
And
это
finally,
шоу.
whenever the party joins together
Походу
very
пора
soon
учиться,
here,
ребята, играть ногами.
and time right there.
Беру, короче, игры,
Indeed.
разучиваю, потом говорю, вот вам
That
Donation
was a
Goal
bit
на
of
миллион,
an
пожалуйста, я
adventure
буду
there.
ногами играть. Кап.
Yeah, a few things didn't go necessarily the way I wanted them
Не
to.
то чтобы он плохо справился,
But,
все отлично, круто.
you keep level head.
Четко.
You have enough glitches at your disposal.
Очень интересно,
here
что он
to
играет
understand
SNES
how
игру
they work.
на
You can eventually navigate to a
аркадном
victory,
джойстике,
although it may not necessarily be the fastest one I could have had.
аркадном
We
контроллере.
still got there. So, yeah, thanks for
Он
doing it
молодцом,
to let me
все
show
окей.
off the,
А я
1
думаю,
for 2
Estimate не
feat
учитывал то, что он
speedrun
будет ногами
aspect
проходить,
of this.
поэтому такое.
Definitely a lot of
Успел, не
fun to
успел.
put together. So the credits here, I'm sure we're probably not going to sit around for them. It is like 7-8 minutes long, something like that. However, at the end of the credits, the game will randomly assign one of 3 moon phases to go with the randomly generated star field. I will try to relay to chat through someone who actually has the ability to talk in that. I will relay which moon phase was selected. The 3 options are crescent, waxing gibbous 3/4 moon, or full moon.
Секрет
So
маны.
from there,
Или того, как хорошо поспать.
I hope everyone enjoyed their stay.
В скобочках
I
прокомментировать.
do try to provide something close to this level of commentary at everything that I do stream. I am planning on trying to learn the Trials of Mana remake, the glitchless speedrun for that. So if anyone here would like to join in for that, that would be great. I'll be starting that next week, most likely. I also do make a game randomizer for Final Fantasy IV and have a couple of other related projects in mind. Yagamov, anything you'd like to say here?
Well, not a whole lot aside from thank you for running. And once again, I would like to reiterate, choosing to play this game with one controller is the hard mode as opposed to two. It's a bit counterintuitive, but this is most definitely by far the more difficult category. So thank you for running this.
And thanks to Games Done Quick for putting on this event.
Все, пацаны, как говорится, неважно, что дальше, свои игры отсидел. Я, блин, должен был, конечно, поспать, но у меня такой организм, что я не могу спать, когда я хочу, периодически. Сделал все, что мог, все, что в моих силах. В принципе, мы с вами немного пропустили из-за того, что я спал. Там начало главное было откомментировать о том, что там как бы спылы будут, тикрейт и все такое. Поэтому чел просто потом к концу обузил систему набивания комбо на оружии и магии. Бесполезную магию мы с вами обсудили. То, что